end of time.
O'clock.
Cartels.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Yeah.
It's Wednesday again. Here we are again. And you guys are all here again, too. That's pretty cool that you always come and watch us talk.
It's going to be a good show tonight.
Tom was very excited about this topic.
I like this topic.
When I said what it was.
We're going to talk about the Thuggee cults.
In India.
Yeah.
This
as seen on Indiana Jones and fucking Temple of
I feel like that's most people's experience of it. And even though that's
only scratching the surface.
Well,
they're actually worse than that.
It's kind of accurate, but I'm going to say like this little caveat at the beginning. In the modern era, many historians, much like the ninjas, have said they think that a lot of the stuff about the Thuggees was a little bit exaggerated.
You mean it was like legends?
Yeah. So we don't know. We don't know how real a lot of stuff. And I'm not saying that it's like gangs of highwaymen didn't do this, that, and the other thing, because obviously they did. They've been doing that throughout history. But when we're talking about an organized, centuries-long cult, of Kali worshippers that did all this stuff and killed all these people, it's like, how accurate is that? No one's entirely sure.
I don't doubt it.
Some people think that the British colonial authorities exaggerated a tad.
Well, maybe, but maybe not. I mean, I don't doubt it one bit, because look at Mexican cartels and look at the Mexican mob and narco armies. That's not a legend, and they're doing shit much worse.
I know.
Well, India is the kind of place they got a lot of different religions. It's a pretty fucking diverse place, just ethnically and religious wise. Something like this is bound to happen. Even the cartels worship fucking basically Satan. They sacrifice people to Satan.
Pretty much.
And that's
what we did a whole show about narco Satanists a while back.
And that's what I think this was. Is it was just
it might have been
organized crime. Adapting a religion to what they're doing and justifying what they're doing. So, well, we do what we do because we're fucking Satanists, is basically what they're saying.
Right.
And then they're around long enough, because the cartels have been around for a long time, to have children and actually give birth to fucking people in this cult. You know how cults work. People born in them, fucking just follow them. And I think it was real.
It's like a mafia. It's kind of like a mafia. The way that it was described, it has kind of like military ranking.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you're born into it, you're trained into it by an older member.
Yeah.
Things like that, and it's usually kind of like large families or like large groups that have been doing it for generations.
Mexican mob, same thing. There's a fucking city in Mexico of nothing but tombs to narco fucking lords, and you look at the tombs, they look like mansions. And it's not. It's just a tomb. It's fucking bizarre.
Seems like such a waste.
Huge mansions, but they're tombs, and it's like a city of the dead. And they got what's in it, like Santa Muerte out there. It's like the Grim Reaper, and that's and they
that's a big cartel thing. Santa Muerte.
It's basically Satan. It's death. They're worshiping death, the angel of death.
It's also a tad bit edgelordy.
Oh yeah, of course they're edgelords. They fucking cut people's fucking arms off. They fucking. Yeah. I've seen videos of them fucking vivisecting a dude, cutting him apart while he's alive, and he can't close his eyes. He's fucking got his eyelids are removed, and he's fucking looking. They got a mirror above him on the fucking table, and they're doing it surgically. They got fucking.
Well, that's like extra fucked up.
Yeah, they're doing it surgically.
It's like we're doing Clockwork Orange, but we're taking it to the next level.
Yeah, well, his head was totally skinned. It was just a skull with eyeballs moving in it.
Man, it's like a French horror movie.
Yeah. And they're running
like martyrs.
Blood into him to keep him alive. They got him on life support as they're cutting him apart. They're videotaping it to show everybody what they're doing.
Yeah.
And he was another drug lord.
Right.
And he was an enemy drug lord. They got a hold of him. And they fucking slowly dismantled his ass on video. That's some rough shit, man. Fucking. So I saw they captured a fucking female assassin from another cartel and cut her arms off at the elbow. and they were videotaping it. And when they threw that first arm out in front of her, she started screaming like that. And one of the narco agents, she was a female, slapped her in the face and says, "You shut the fuck up." And she stopped screaming. Weirdest thing ever. Then they cut the other arm off at the elbow. And she didn't even scream during that point. And I just think, boy, the mind is fucking super powerful. Cut her arms off at the elbow. Then the dude fucking was talking to the video and reached out and slit her throat. It was rough to watch. It was rough to watch. There was one woman, they fucking cut her head off with a chainsaw. No, excuse me. They were just cutting dudes' throats with a chainsaw. I got confused. They cut this girl's head off with a knife. And she just gritted and bare it and was looking at him right in the eyes as he was hacking her head off.
Spite is very
Yeah,
powerful.
she was like, "Fuck you." She was from another narco army, I guess.
Yeah.
So she was a badass herself, but that was weird. And the eyes just fucking froze. It was, ugh.
Elizabeth Jack says, "I've not heard about them." And Zach says, "Isn't the Indian government in denial about them existing too?" I'm not entirely sure.
No, I think back then they said they were complaining about them. They wanted help from
yeah, I mean, because the shit's been going on for centuries. You know what I mean? It's just like, we'll get into, when the earliest references were of them and stuff like that.
The British started dealing with them in the early 1900s, if memory serves.
Late 1800s.
Late 1800s.
Late 1800s.
Okay.
Yeah,
close.
like late 1900s.
It was around that time when they started dealing with them. They were basically like drug cartels, but they were thief cartels. They stole.
Yeah.
They just stole shit.
And also murdered people.
Yeah, well, they murdered people so they could steal.
So they could steal all their shit.
Yeah, that's what they did.
But they were kind of doing it in... And I'm not sure if this is maybe the part that was kind of exaggerated, but it's just kind of like they... At least from the British colonialist point of view, it was done for religious reasons.
I think they were just using religion to justify it.
I kind of feel like that was maybe what it was. Like I said, gangs of highwaymen have been doing this kind of shit forever. Yeah. Like, since humans have existed. So I don't think that part is hard to believe. I just think that it was kind of like, okay, so it's kind of like, how in the U.S. and the U.K., like the Satanic Panic, and how people are saying, it's like, look, people do murder people in horrible ways and torture them and stuff like that. And sometimes they say, yeah, Satan made me do it and blah, blah, blah. But the whole thing about it being like an organized group of like Satanists that all know each other and they're doing it for that reason and all this other kind of stuff, that's mostly bullshit. I think that's kind of the situation we have here.
Well, we'll have to look more into it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that these people didn't kill a bunch of people, because I'm sure they did. They know they did. But it's just kind of like, did they do it because they were trying to restore the balance of the universe with Kali, who they worshipped, and blah, blah, blah? I'm not entirely sure about that. Like I said, maybe they were just using it the way that cartels use, like, Santa Muerte and stuff like that. That's what I think it was. I kind of feel like it was more along those lines.
They were bands of thieves. A lot of them related, some of them recruited. This is the description I remember from memory. Some of them were related to each other, other ones weren't. They could take new members. Most of them were homeless people. They would do things when they started, and what they would do is they were kind of like gypsies. They'd travel around. They never really stayed in one place, and they had all different kind of tricks that they could do. And one of the real common ones was to join a group of travelers, usually like some kind of pilgrims on some kind of religious pilgrimage, and then they'd wait for them to all bed down at night on the side of the road when they were asleep, and then all the cult members would wake up and silently slit all their throats while they were asleep. Yeah. And then they'd rob the place blind and then just vanish the next day. They'd vanish it in the night.
Although...
leaving Kali shit behind as a warning and, that kind of thing.
Usually, in the vast majority of these cases, they usually used subterfuge in the way that they would fall in with a group of travelers and befriend them, and it's like they'd even hang out with them for a little while, to see what they had and stuff. Usually they did use knives sometimes, and sometimes they used poison as well, but not necessarily to kill them, but maybe to like kind of make them delirious or whatever.
Knock them out.
But mainly their thing was strangulation, and we'll get into the reason.
Yeah, that's right. Strangulation.
We'll get into the reason for why that is. There was a reason that they did.
Remember, there was a lot of that. I just my memory, now that you jog my memory, it was strangulation.
And it wasn't necessarily, because I think some people thought it was like some kind of ritualistic thing, but I think it was more for pragmatic reasons.
Well, if you strangle someone, you don't have to carry a knife.
It's not. That's not what it was. It was like some kind of legal. We'll get into it later. But it's like it's some kind of like legality, like kind of law.
Yeah.
Loophole type of thing.
Carrying a weapon leaves you vulnerable to arrest. and
that too, I think that was
So,
partially why,
right.
because it's like a lot of them wouldn't carry knives or swords for that reason, because
Yeah.
they didn't want to look suspicious. You know, so you could carry something that looked like
a belt.
a belt or a bandana or
Yeah.
like a scarf, which is what they would usually use, and no one would think anything of it because, you know, it's just a fucking scarf, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's not. Full Metal Nosferatu says, my horror filmmaker friend, who I'm currently doing a movie with, watches cartel scenes not for enjoyment, but to see what extreme gore would look like for his Splatterfest. Yeah, and I'm gonna say that, you know, horror legend Tom Savini, the reason that his effects were so good is because he was a photographer in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So he went around taking close-up pictures of real people with their heads blown off and all that kind of stuff. So he knew what that shit was supposed to look like in real life.
Yeah.
And he even said, like, because I have a bunch of documentaries about him, and he said later on that helped him a lot, like in his later work.
I was
It's
watching that
fucked
kind of
up,
stuff on the early internet when I started looking at it. I don't look at it all the time. It's just sometimes I'll, you know, like fucking Murder Hornet was sent, you know, he goes to Mexico all the time. He was fucking sending me fucking bizarre shit that the cartels were doing. And it's just, I don't like to deny reality, you know, the military infantry background. I like to know what people do. But really one of the things that interested me was how the victim reacted. You know, how I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. How are they mentally defending themselves from having their body dismantled like that? You know what I mean? Are they actually conscious, or have they fucking kind of
just checked out
mentally? Yeah, because
I think at some point your brain just goes nope.
Yeah. I would hope that you check out. Like I've had the shit beat out of me, and didn't feel a single bit of it. You know what I mean? It's 'cause
I think after a certain point your brain's just like, nah.
Yeah.
We're just gonna.
When you're in a fight, you get hit in the head repeatedly and shit. You don't. I never really felt anything. It's like the camera was shaking.
Yeah.
You know. Then afterwards, you were like, "Oh man, fucking, I'm hurt."
Yeah.
So I think it's that. But some of that shit they do is very slow.
Everybody I know that's been in any kind of traumatic, like had some kind of traumatic injury. And it's, you know, I don't know if this is true across the board, but everybody I know that's had some kind of traumatic injury, they say to me that it's like, I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember it.
The pain, I don't really remember. It's like, I just kind of remember the few seconds before it happened.
Yeah. And
then I remember waking up and I'm just like, oh shit, what happened? You know what I mean? So it's like, they don't remember anything in between. Yeah. So I think that as a mercy, your brain kind of like,
shuts all that off.
Just kind of blurs it out.
Yeah.
A little bit, I guess.
There's a phenomenon.
Which is good. That's good that your brain does that.
There's a phenomenon from the animal kingdom. I think it's called going into Sull. I think it's called Sull. Isn't that right?
I'm not sure.
It's usually when a prey animal, like an antelope or a horse or whatever, or a zebra, is getting eaten alive.
Yeah. And
the eyes start rolling back, and it stops fighting back. And it's surmised that what's happened is that the animal's checked out. It's not in there anymore.
I mean, I hope so.
Yeah.
You would think. I mean, I don't know. Like from a natural selection standpoint, I'm not really sure how that would be selected for.
Yeah, it's probably not. It's probably just a byproduct of just overload.
It might be.
You just start
I kind of feel
out.
like it's that, because there's just really no way that would be selected for just by the nature of how natural selection works.
You can't pass it down.
No, that's what I'm saying. So it's kind of like that might just be, like you said, a byproduct of just your brain
being
overloaded with stimuli.
Yeah.
Pain and it just fear. Being like, nah.
Yeah, and it just checks out.
And it's just like, and it just kind of goes into like...
You're like rendered unconscious.
Into like white noise or whatever.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, is kind of a mercy.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean?
Well, it could be that the brain itself starts going, okay, this is too much fucking feedback, too much overload. I'm just going to shut down this and that. There's no reason. I know I'm being eaten. So, knowing that I'm being eaten and feeling it isn't advantageous to me. It's over. So it just the brain just probably starts shutting that down.
Yeah, because it's like, what? You're going to die.
You're going to die anyway.
In a horrible way.
Yeah, so let's start shutting down.
And it's just kind of like... I was watching an Expo earlier. If you guys don't know the YouTube channel Nexpo, that's one of the best channels on YouTube. But he was talking about... I think it was from a couple months back, and I was just kind of trying to get through some of my Watch Later playlist, which has like 300 videos on it. And he was talking about the darkest lost media, and one of those was the infamous audio tape of that dude and his girlfriend getting eaten by the bear.
Yeah.
which he didn't play, thankfully, but he just kind of like explained it. And I kind of feel like, I don't know. I don't know if that dude, from what I know of that audio tape, I think that dude was very aware that he was being eaten by a bear. Yeah. Like the whole entire time it was happening.
Big old grizzly. Big old grizzly.
Which, like I said, that's right up there in my top 3 ways I don't want to die. I do not want to be eaten by an animal. Like any animal. A bear, shark, a crocodile. No thanks.
There was a person...
it might be number 1.
I saw an interview with a person...
I think plane crash might be number 1, but that's number 2.
I saw a person who had survived a bear attack. I think it was a woman, if I remember correctly. Who she remembers her head being bitten, and she heard her skull crack as the bear was eating her, or trying to eat her, and but the bear evidently let her go. wasn't hungry, just killed her, or just tried to kill her.
I was gonna say
she lived though.
Yeah, I was gonna say did she come back as a zombie and talk about it.
Yeah,
yeah.
It was a big old fucking grizz.
Yeah,
but it didn't eat her. It just bit her.
She's like,
and then let her go, like she was dead.
Luckiest person.
Yeah, she was up hiking up in the fucking mountains.
And that's why I don't go hiking in the mountains. I don't want to get eaten by a bear. I don't want to get eaten by a mountain lion. I don't want to get eaten by any animal if I could avoid it. So
there was another story that was of a girl that fucking got attacked by a mountain lion. She was riding a bicycle, a mountain bike.
That's less terrifying than a bear because it's a cat. I mean, and it's big, but it's not bear big.
She said that fucking she didn't even see it. She's like she just got hit by a ton of bricks. It jumped on her and she passed by.
I can imagine.
It jumped on her, and it fucked her up pretty bad. I don't remember how she got out. I think maybe somebody found him and got the
and pulled him apart.
And chased it off. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But she was riding on that bicycle, and it just boom, it got her. You know how cats are.
I heard about that. Yeah. It's like, ooh, look at food on a bike.
Yeah. What is that? It's running. Get it.
It's a movable feast.
Could be that it didn't. Thought it was a deer of some kind.
And that was running
bit on her a little bit because this isn't what I thought it was.
Yeah, this isn't good.
Yeah.
I think I'm more scared of getting eaten by a shark than anything else. A shark, and with an alligator / crocodile being second. Bear might be third, but it's like I'm not that scared of bears. But we don't have grizzly bears in Florida. We just have black bears, and they are not as big or as so they get kind of big, but it's like they're not as big or as aggressive.
There was
as grizzly bears.
A guy who survived a shark attack. I think it either bit his whole leg off or part of his thigh off. He said he didn't even feel it.
Yeah, that's what I've heard that from other shark attacks.
He thought it just hit him.
Yeah, they said it just feels like something bumped you or something hit you kind of hard, and you're like, wow, what the fuck was that? And then they pull you up in the boat, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, you're bleeding like crazy. But
where did that go?
It's because all the teeth are so sharp.
Pretty sure I had another limb.
Yeah. He said he didn't know. He looked down and fucking, I think he said his leg was gone or it had a big bite.
See, this is why, look, I'm from Florida, and I grew up on the east coast of Florida, so my mom used to take us to the beach all the time. I never saw any giant sharks, but I saw plenty of small sharks, and a couple of them even like kind of brushed by my leg, at which point I'd be like, yeah, it's time to get out of the water now. Yeah. One of the things, I was in my marine biology class in high school, because I took marine biology. And somebody, or the teacher showed, I can't remember what his name was, Mr. Manley, something like that. And he showed a picture that someone had taken from like a helicopter or a small plane of Daytona Beach, where I grew up. And here's all the swimmers on the beach, like right here. And then literally like a few feet out here, it's just like sharks. Like just shadows. You could see them like in the water because it wasn't that deep. And I was just kind of like, well, I'm never going in the ocean ever again. They were like all right there. Right there. And like I said, I've had some small ones like run by my leg before when I wasn't even out that deep. So no thanks. I don't, and we don't really have that many. I think New Smyrna, which was a little bit north, which is probably about 20 miles north of where I grew up, that has kind of more shark attacks than you would think. They're not huge great whites or nothing like that, because we don't, great whites, we don't usually have those in this area. But we have tiger sharks, we have sand sharks, we have other shit like that. And they will attack people on occasion. It does happen. So they don't usually kill them. But I'd like to have all of my limbs intact if I could manage it, you know? And I don't need to go in the ocean for any reason. I really don't. So I'm just saying.
Okay,
Yeah,
so...
Hugo says, when I was studying makeup,
Yeah.
FX, they took us to the morgue a couple of times. Yeah, I mean, I know they do. And Full Metal Nosferatu said, I was going to mention Savini. My friend knows Savini really well. I recently recommended he watch The Pit on Max, and he was impressed with the gruesome realism of the ER scenes. Yeah, like I said, that's why he's a fucking legend in horror, is because all his shit was so realistic, because he had seen the real thing, like, close up many, many, many times. So he knew what it was supposed to look like. He seems like he's a cool guy. I've met him a couple of times. Like, not, just at conventions and stuff. And, he always seemed like a cool dude,
He's probably all right.
He always seemed like a cool dude.
To me, he just seems like the dude you fucking just drink with.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really want
Well,
to
and he is super into, and I really like, because I know that sometimes you have people that are, if you go to horror conventions or you're into horror and stuff, like some people that are in the movies, like they'll go to conventions, but they kind of resent the horror fan base, and they're just like, man, it's like, I'm just here to like make some money and blah blah blah.
Yeah, the career isn't doing
but
well.
like Tom Savini is like into it. Like he loves horror movies and he loves all that shit, and it's like I'm always like way more into people that are like really really into it because they like it.
Yeah, we saw him at a convention, and he seemed to like conventions.
Yeah, well, he does them all the time.
Yeah.
Like I think every horror convention I've ever been to, he's been there.
Yeah.
Like I don't think the one that we went to, I didn't like meet him at that one. I met him at another one earlier.
Fairuza Balk was walking around that same convention. She was standing right behind me getting coffee. I didn't realize that was her. Didn't even recognize her.
Funny.
Because I picture her like something out of The Craft,
Like in
or,
The Craft, no,
or out
she
of
doesn't.
fucking History
She's
X.
still recognizable.
Yeah, I just wasn't really looking for her. She was standing right behind me.
I
And,
saw her like walking out of the convention room when we were up on the balcony.
Me and Jim were actually doing that convention as we were hosting a little thing. So
yeah,
for horror writers.
Yeah, and we did some panels and shit.
Yeah, we did panels, and so we were like that little snack bar we were at. I think was for people that worked at the panels, or was it just up in that same area?
I think it was just for everybody.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we did like I did a women in horror panel. I did a David Lynch panel.
Yeah.
And then like a Twin Peaks panel, and then we did a bunch of other ones, but I can't remember.
But Fairuza looked like she liked doing conventions.
Yeah.
I saw her walk around. A little girl. I was watching, and I was up on the top floor looking down. It's kind of like a mall because there's a big convention center here in Orlando, and she's walking and she sees a little girl who's probably about 5. So she's playing with a little girl, fucking just walking around on her own.
Oh.
It's not like a fucking celebrity thing, really. It's pretty chill. But she was like having fun with this little girl. Like, look at her.
Yeah, because all the celebrities that are there, I mean, they're just there at the table and they just go out and get coffee or go get snacks like everybody else does. And you run into them in line, and as long as you're not like a weirdo about it.
I was about half lit. Meg Foster comes up. I got my arm around her.
She walked right past our table.
Yeah. And I said, Meg, you want to get a drink? She goes, yeah. And then
she was super nice.
She was like, yeah, let's get a drink. Because we had a bunch of alcohol with
us.
And then we started going to go get a drink. And she goes, wait a minute. I got to do the signing. No, I got to do the signing. I said, all right.
We were trying to lure her away.
Yeah.
It's like, look, we have all this big bag full of... Because we were doing another panel, like the drunken whatever panel. It's kind of like the sidetrack show, but with live people there. And we had this huge bag of like little airport like bottles that we were throwing out.
How long ago was that? About 7 years? 7 years maybe? 7 years?
Something like that.
And she was older, but you could still recognize her, and
I recognized her immediately.
Immediately recognized her
because she walked by our table. I'm like, oh
and the eyes. She does have those fucking bright blue eyes. Now, I think they might...
Yeah, they look exactly like that.
They look like... I think they might have enhanced them in some of the movies, but she does have fucking striking blue eyes, and I said, I recognize those blue eyes everywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere. And she's fucking like, oh yeah? Fucking funny.
Yeah, so like I said, if it's exaggerated for the movie, it's not that exaggerated, because I immediately...
Yeah, I saw on some of them, like fucking Masters of the Universe, I think they're slightly exaggerated.
Yeah, but that's like a fancy.
No, she got ice blue eyes.
That's what her eyes look like.
Nice woman. Nice woman.
She was super nice,
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny. We were trying to
come on,
we got booze, and she's like,
booze. You guys got booze?
I was like, big bag.
She was going with us, but she's like,
shit, I can't.
I gotta do the sign in us.
It was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome. Film on Nosferatu says Kane Hodder is really into it as well. Great guy. Yeah, I've heard from. I've never met him, but like I've heard from everybody that he is like a super nice dude. And he is super into horror, too. Like I said, I'm a horror nerd myself, so other horror nerds, represent. And especially somebody that's in the industry that does horror movies, like, and they really like doing horror movies,
Yeah.
and that's all they want to do. Like, that's really cool to me.
I kind of miss those days of doing those conventions. We did like 2 of them, but it's kind of petered out. They stopped calling writers.
They don't do a writer track anymore,
Yeah.
I don't think.
Man,
Because
me
I
and Jen
guess
have
it doesn't
fun.
really draw that much.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people read horror, but I don't really think people care that much about meeting horror writers as much as they care about people that are in horror movies.
So they just
you know what I
kind
mean?
of killed that venue, even though we had a fucking good time doing it.
Yeah, because man, we had like a full ride. Like they
Yeah.
paid for us to go in, and like they paid for our table and everything.
They allowed us to fucking sell any merchandise we brought. Fucking, we brought a whole case of
like
books.
the only thing
I
we
would
had to
sell every one of her books that we had.
The only
in stock,
thing we
I'd
had to
sell
pay
them all.
for was like
Booze.
snacks and booze.
Snacks
and
and
stuff.
booze, and they let us bring booze.
Yeah,
If I had,
they
bought a bunch of little
encouraged us
bottles,
to bring booze.
Yeah, we're giving out free booze to the fucking.
Which we did.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Well, they may do something like that again.
I mean, they still do that convention, but like I said, I don't think they do the writer's track anymore, as far as I'm aware.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, because like I said, I don't think people care.
The funny
that much
thing
about
is, though, is that
about meeting the
we
writers.
liked doing it. Even though we sold all that shit, we didn't make that much. I think we made a couple $100,
Yeah,
which made it worth it. But we didn't want. We would have do it even if we didn't make money.
it was fun.
It was just fun to do it. Yeah.
and it was fun, like seeing everybody and
Yeah.
just hanging out with other nerds.
Yeah.
Like I like doing that.
Yeah, and like we made a couple $100, and parking was like 25, 30.
Now,
bucks.
if I'd had to pay for our own table, and like it wouldn't have been worth it.
No, it would have been
but
worth it.
because they paid for everything,
Yeah.
then it was worth it.
Yeah, because if you buy a table, I think a table is like almost $500 a day, isn't it? Was it like that? 500.
I don't
a day?
remember. Like last time I checked, yeah, I think it was 500, but I think that was for the whole weekend.
Okay.
It's probably more than that now because that was like a few years ago that I checked. And you have to pay for parking, and you have to pay for the passes to get in.
Yeah.
Like other than the table rental.
And a lot of people that are vending there are also living out of a hotel.
Yeah, because it's
they're
3
not
days.
local. Yeah.
Because it's 3 days, so they have to pay for the hotel too. I think they give you a deal on it. If you're with the convention, like you get a cheaper room, but I don't think it's that much cheaper.
We need to go to a convention. They still
do it. It's just they do it. They used to do it twice a year. They used to do it in April. I don't think they did it this year, but then they do it in October.
Yeah.
But we'll see. They might not be doing it in Orlando anymore. I don't know.
I mean, I'd almost consider maybe getting a table.
Yeah,
At least we had books.
like I said, I'd have to look into because when they did the true crime.
Yeah.
Like the crime con or whatever it was.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That was in Orlando a couple years back.
Yeah.
And I got an email about it. Because I write true crime, so they were asking, "Hey, do you want to be on Crime Con and stuff?" And like, I looked up how much it would be, and it just wouldn't be worth it. It's like I would have to sell, like, at least $1,000 worth of books, to even make it worth it.
All right.
So I was just kind of like, I don't.
That's
really...
$100.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's 3 days, and it's like, and we'd probably, at least we live locally, so we wouldn't have to get a hotel room because we could just drive home at night, but it's just kind of like...
I was selling every one of them we brought.
Yeah, but I'd have to buy all the...
That was about 30, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'd have to buy all the books, too, which is also... I get them a lot cheaper, but it's still a huge outlay.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean.
All right, looks like everybody's here. We can start the show.
All right. So today, we are talking about... not whatever we were talking about before, but we were talking about...
That was the introduction.
Indian Thuggee cults, which most people, I think, are probably only familiar with from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I think that's where I kind of first heard of them. Those guys that were, like, with the Shankara stones, is that what they were?
Yeah, the Shankara stones.
And ripping out people's hearts and all that other kind of stuff, and prepare to be Kali in hell and all that business.
I guess a Shankara stone is kind of like a chakra, like a chakra. Right?
I guess.
Maybe it's a different word.
I mean, they were for real magical.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they fucking glow.
Yeah, they glowed and stuff. So it's like, well, that was kind of one thing that I liked about the Indiana Jones series is that it was like magical realism.
Religion and magic were real.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones.
I mean, because even in the first, like, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the fucking Ark of the Covenant, like, it worked.
It was real, yeah.
It melted people's faces off. So, and same thing with this one where the Shankara stones were... did they actually do anything, though?
Yeah, they
were just like...
They gave, like, good luck to the towns that they came from.
That's right, so we had to return them.
And when they stole them, when the Thuggees stole them, they put them inside their idol. It was a big skull.
That's right.
And they had them all, and that allowed them to basically steal souls, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't really explain what it was doing for the bad guys. It was power in their shit.
Yeah.
That's what, maybe.
I think that's all it was. They they wanted all three of them so they
Yeah.
could be like, so they could take their evil to like the next level. I guess what it was. But they were thwarted by Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it didn't really explain what exactly it did for the bad guys.
Yeah.
I don't really remember.
I mean, there's the bad guys.
Right, yeah.
They just want to take stuff from the good guys just cause.
Yeah.
Because they're evil.
Yeah.
They don't need a reason. But yeah, so I kind of feel like that was where, I mean, that was obviously, this concept here is where that that came from in that movie. And I kind of feel like most people know, because there's really not, I guess there's been stuff about it, but it's not like, the Indiana Jones reference, that's pretty much the only like mainstream reference that probably everybody knows about this particular like historical thing. It's not super well known, I feel like. Like, I was looking for documentaries about it on YouTube, and it's like, there are a couple, but they're all like pretty short. Like, they kind of get into all the pertinent details and stuff, but it's like none of them are more than like 20 minutes long. Like, so it wasn't like a huge, and even some of the channels that I can usually rely on to do long form shit about everything didn't really have anything about this, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Well, it could be that records from the time were never put down.
That could be true.
The British
too.
might have just known a little bit about it and heard about it. We're getting it from them. We're not getting the information from the Indians themselves.
Well,
and not
yeah.
Contemporary.
I think
sources,
that's kind of a large part of the problem.
which kind of leads back to Ninja.
Yeah. I kind of got ninja vibes about this. I mean, but now these dudes did exist.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying it might have been like exaggerated.
Yeah, and if you guys know what I'm talking about, Ninja, as you know them, guys wearing all black, they're assassins, they're in these little guilds and shit. It didn't happen.
No.
The Japanese believed it happened, but it didn't. They're talking about the earliest reference to it is called Shinobi.
Just like that video game.
Shinobi. Yeah, and fucking there's a record of a Shinobi attack on a castle where they set some fires and did some shit. From that, the idea of ninja came. But the Shinobi were just fucking recon scouts or commandos. If you were a warlord, a Japanese warlord, you didn't need to hire fucking a third-party contractors to go out and do your shit. You had your own guys, because you couldn't trust them. You had your own guys that you could trust. And, the attack on that castle, the Shinobi attack, it basically means scout attack or recon attack or, that's what they're talking about. But from that, the Japanese of the fucking 1700s put together the concept of a ninja. Wearing black and is a hired assassin. But the reason why they're wearing black, really, is because to make them invisible. And they're invisible on a kabuki stage, where you have a black background.
Yeah.
So that was very common in Japanese kabuki, to have the extras who are moving things on the set.
Yeah, like a stagehand.
To be in black. And
Yeah.
that works real well. If you're a soldier, an infantry soldier, you know that black is not good camouflage. It stands out.
Yeah.
Good camouflage is mottled fucking grays and greens. That's pretty good. So, what they're talking about is that in kabuki theater, in some pretty famous plays, kabuki plays, the good guy is being attacked by a mass of enemies. But the enemies are being played by the stagehands.
Yeah.
And he's just doing a dance, basically. And you'll see swords, but you never really see the enemy, because it's black on a black background.
Right.
So the Japanese watching this think that, well, shit, black is a great color to make you disappear. And then later on they go...
On stage.
Yeah, on stage. But they're thinking, well, these shinobi, man, they must have been wearing black.
Yeah.
So that's no.
And then every now and then you see like a ninja movie where the ninjas are wearing white, which is even more
That's
stupid.
even worse, yeah.
It's like they'll be able to see you from a mile away.
Yeah.
You're not ninja-ing good at all.
Yeah.
We can see you, bro.
Just get some brown and green clothes and roll around in the mud. That's what we used to do. We were in the army. Even if you didn't want to be in the mud, you ended up in the mud.
I know it doesn't look as cool.
You'll be fucking real camouflaged after a few fucking weeks of being out there.
It doesn't look as
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
The thing about the Thuggee, though, is that they didn't really seem to need camouflage in the ninja sense.
Right.
Because what they would do is they would be like regular ass people that just looked like regular ass travelers.
Yeah.
And like I said, they would befriend other travelers. Hey, where are you going? Hey, we're going there too.
Yeah.
Let's go together, blah, blah, blah. And then they would be like friends with them. And then, you know, when the travelers least expected it, they would all...
Yeah.
They would kill all the people.
So instead of dressing up like an evil soldier, they just do what a terrorist does. You just wear street clothes.
You just wear regular ass clothes,
Yeah.
which to me, like, that always seemed like a better strategy. Like, I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying that it's like
it's a psychological camouflage.
That's a better.
You're not standing out.
Strategy than
you're disappearing in the crowd. You look like everybody else.
Because, man, you come out and, like, you try to do some terrorist shit, like, looking like a ninja. Everybody's going to be like, what the fuck is that dude?
Yeah, the terrorist.
Why are you dressed like a ninja?
Yeah.
Which is like those dumbass bodybuilders that try to do that kidnapping, all that other kind of stuff, and one of them had a ninja outfit.
Dressed up in ninja outfits here in Florida. Outfits. That was only here in Florida. You better watch out for Florida, man. That was a great fucking movie.
We're idiots down here.
Pain and Gain. A movie called Pain and Gain.
Well, it's based on a true story.
Based on a true story.
That's why.
We covered the case on the show.
Yeah. But, yeah. So, it's just kind of like...
But dressed up as ninjas to abduct a dude.
What?
Although, you know what?
How dumb can a person be?
It kind of worked, though. Because when witnesses told the police that the dude was fucking abducted by ninjas, they didn't believe it.
They didn't believe it.
So in some ways,
so I guess that's kind of like
works. Yeah, yeah.
It kind of works.
Oh,
not for the reasons that they intended.
Abducted by ninjas. Psychological camouflage.
I see. And how many drugs are you on right now, sir? Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So I guess it could work that way if you're just gonna like. Oh my god, the guy got abducted like by somebody dressed as Colonel Sanders and somebody in a giant chicken suit. You know what I mean? And like no one would believe you. I get it. But yeah, so the thing about it, like I said, these dudes, supposedly, the first reference to them was like sometime in the 1300s. But they didn't really get much traction or much known about it, at least in the West, until the British colonial period. And you know, a lot of people started like writing books about it and shit like that in like the late 19th century because they're like, here's a scourge, we need to do something about this, and started writing about it. So it seems like that was when it became kind of a bigger thing. But like I said, I don't really know. I don't know how organized this stuff kind of was. Like I said, it seemed to me, at least from the way it's described, it seems kind of more like small mafias, you know what I mean? Or just like families of bandits, essentially, and bandits and murderers that are like going around doing this kind of shit. But we'll see. Now, some reports, I don't know if I believe this or not, claim that the Thuggee may have murdered as many as 2 million people during the time that they were active. Now, don't get too crazy about that because, I mean, as I said, the first mention of them reportedly is from the 1300s. So we're talking about several centuries. Yeah. Still, that seems like a high number. But not impossible. Not impossible. There was one dude that, you know, there's a story that goes around about this one dude that they captured that was a Thuggee, and he said that he had personally killed more than 900 people.
That sounds like quite a boast.
Which, again...
Yeah.
I was like, how'd you get anything else done?
Yeah.
Seriously? Sorry, I just thought of like, Eddie Izzard, you killed 3 million people. I'm like, you must get up very early in the morning. Yeah, so it's just kind of like, I don't know. Like, how many people is that per day? That's a lot. Like, I don't know how old the dude was.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just sounds like he was bragging a little bit. Not impossible.
Sounds like bullshit.
But it does sound kind of bullshit. So, like I said, at least according from a modern historian standpoint, I kind of feel like most modern historians think that a lot of the stuff about the Thuggees from at least the British colonial period was a little bit exaggerated. And they were trying to kind of put it across as like, here's this scourge in India. And because they didn't really understand like Indian culture that much. So they were kind of trying to fearmonger a little bit. You know what I mean? So maybe they were exaggerating the threat. Perhaps. I don't know.
Well... I think they did understand Indian culture pretty well because the British were really well known for using divide and conquer strategies inside of fucking India. They could...
True, they did do that.
Tell you what, the British, they weren't very numerous at any time in history. But man, they were really good at fucking commando type shit and deception. And they had a great navy. So I think they understood India pretty well. But what you could be talking about, I think probably an alternate view, is that you had a lot of British officers in India who probably wanted to elevate their status.
Yeah, that's
so what they do is they start going, oh, I fought these Thuggee dudes, man.
Right,
we were doing it,
They killed 2 million people.
Yeah, right. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that there weren't any Thuggees. I'm pretty sure there were.
Oh, I'm sure there were.
But I think probably what you're talking about is something similar to the fucking Mexican cartels. Similar to that.
Yeah. It does give me that vibe.
Yeah, a lot of same thinking there. A religion behind it. Fucking, you're using a religion to justify your crime. A criminal subculture, like Satanism, using kind of like gypsy style tactics. You're trying to get money and power, stealing it, killing people. That's like the Mexican cartel.
Yeah.
Or cartels, plural.
Yeah.
That's probably what they're talking about.
I kind of feel like it's a similar thing. Because the Thuggee was not just one thing. I mean, it was several groups of them. Because like I said, sometimes it was family groups. Or sometimes they would be like in a group where they were all kind of the same profession. Because they all had like normal lives too. Like in normal jobs and shit. And then they would just go do this like a couple months out of the year or something. We're going to go do our Thuggee shit.
It's a side grift.
Yeah, so it was like a side gig.
Well, it's like
so it's like they're all like stonemasons or whatever the fuck, and it's like we're the stonemason Thuggee cult, and we're gonna go, and we called ourselves the stonemason or whatever the equivalent of it would be, and they would all go and do that together, like if and get a whole bunch of money, and then come home and act like nothing happened.
Well, Italian mob did that.
Yeah, it was the same kind.
They'd have a cover.
It was the same kind
job,
of thing.
and then they'd do other stuff. They steal.
Yeah, same kind of thing. So the word Thuggee actually comes from Hindi. It means deceiver or swindler. And yes, in case you were wondering, the English word thug does derive from this word. It means pretty much the same. It doesn't mean exactly the same thing in English, but that's where it came from. Now, I will note that the term Thuggee was more common in northern India. In southern India, they usually use the term fansagar, which means using a noose because of their proclivity to strangle people, which we'll talk about like why they did that like later on. But so their big thing was they were kind of these roving gangs of people. Highwaymen, as they would call them, like in Europe, I guess. And they would kind of, their big thing was they would join another group of travelers. Usually it was a group that was smaller in numbers than their group. You know what I mean? Because they were pretty tactical, so it's just kind of like, well, this group only has 90 people and we have 110 people. So, we outnumber them, so it'll be okay.
Shavy showed up. What's up, Shavy?
Hey, what's up, Shavy? I know, everybody's here.
Yeah.
Mango's here, too.
Okay.
And, he just showed up, I just saw.
Okay, cool.
But so they would kind of like, hey, where are you going? We're going there, too. So it's like, and they would befriend them, sometimes for quite a while. They would even pretend that they were the same religion as whatever this group was. They would befriend them. They would hang out. They would camp. They would eat with them, sometimes for several days or weeks even. And while this was going on, they were kind of like casing, like seeing what they had, like, can we defeat these people? Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. So, like, all of it was very, strategic.
Yeah, and you'd have to wait for them to be in a location where they'd be helpless, too, where they couldn't call for help. So
yeah, that, too.
Biding your time would be in their advantage.
So what they would do then is that they would get several of the people to just kind of be talking to the other people in the group, like, hey, how's it hanging, or whatever. And then, like, another contingent would basically come up behind the other people and just strangle them all. Like I said, usually they used a noose, or the most common thing that you see is like a scarf. Usually yellow, but not like bright yellow, kind of a beigey yellow. That was kind of like one of their trademarks. And the reason that they did that, which I kind of have notes about it later on, but I might like mention it here and then get more into it later. But there was some kind of legal loophole about spilling blood. So they figured that, like, and that would be, like, a higher sentence. So, like, if you murdered somebody and spilled their blood, like, by stabbing them or whatever, then that would be worse. So if you strangled them, technically, you weren't spilling any blood. You were still killing them, obviously, but you weren't spilling any blood because you were strangling them. And sometimes they got lighter sentences. So that was kind of their little loophole workaround, like, so they wouldn't get in as much trouble. That's kind of what they would do.
So you could kill a person as long as you didn't spill any blood, it'd be easier on you.
They'd be easy on you. Yeah.
That's weird.
Because, like I said, it was kind of like a weird
like a
loophole in the law. And that's, you know, the speculation is that that's kind of why they used strangulation. Because that was kind of what they were most famous for, was strangulation, like I said, usually with a scarf.
Yeah, I think that's the reason that they're given. But from a tactical standpoint, if you have people run around with concealed knives, that could be problematic. If every Thuggee has a bunch of concealed knives, then people start searching everybody.
Yeah.
And if you found a knife, you go, this might be a Thuggee.
They thought of that too. That's why a lot of them did not carry knives or swords or anything like that. Because they didn't want to look suspicious.
They're going to carry a weapon that blends in. Something you don't recognize as
it's just like a scarf.
A scarf.
Everybody's got one of those.
Or a belt. Something. And that's... The fabled ninja did shit like that too. Supposedly, even though I don't think they existed. You know, like the tonfa. The tonfa was really just a handle on a fucking grinding stone, on a grindstone. And the sai, or not the sai, the fucking little sickle-looking thing. That's for cutting fucking rice and shit. The thing is there was no ninja. There were no ninja.
Yeah.
The Japanese thought there were ninja. But whenever they're talking about the ninja, they're talking about something that used to exist. Never something that exists in their day.
Yeah.
So in the 1700s, they were saying they used to exist. But there's no evidence that they existed.
And anytime people cast stuff back into the past,
when they cast in the past, there's usually a problem.
That usually means that's like, it's kind of...
Yeah.
It might not, I mean, because a lot of legends are based in, like, have a kernel of truth to them. Yeah. I mean, the story came from somewhere, but a lot of times it's, like, wildly exaggerated.
It's been traced back to a fucking Japanese historical little combat document and everything where they mention the shinobi. But a shinobi attack on a castle. But they're talking about commandos from an enemy army.
Yeah.
And I was talking about these black-clad, you know, fucking mercenary type assassins, you know, from a mafia. No, it was an enemy army's scouts did that. Their commandos did it to soften them up before a big attack the next day, burning their shit down, burn up all their food, weaken them. That was that kind of shit. This is what a commando does.
Mango says, my great-grandfather was in the British Army based in India back then. Well, shit, then maybe you have some, like, insights into this. Oh, Shaby says, hopefully Papa will be here before too long. He had a nasty fall at work on Monday.
Okay.
And they won't let him go back to the job. Boeing has their own medical team, and they think something is really wrong with his ribs.
Well, hopefully they'll take care of that.
And then she said, actually, he just got home. Okay, well, shit, man. Hopefully he's okay.
Yeah, I'm sure that he got medical coverage.
Let us know.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on
He might
with
have
that.
some paid medical vacation coming.
That would be kind of, I mean, it's not nice how it happened, because I'm sure he's in a lot of pain and stuff, but, you know.
It happens. Paid medical leave.
Yeah, it does happen. So,
for Boeing? Yeah, that's Boeing, contract.
Yeah,
as defense contractor, he should have that kind of power.
High Desert is here.
What's up, High
evening.
Desert?
Hey, everybody. Everybody's showing up. Yeah, Shavy said I'm sure he'll let you guys know what's up when he gets in here. Yeah, I hope so. So hopefully he's all right enough to come in here. Like, don't, you know, no pressure or anything like that. But, you know, we want to make sure he's okay. But yeah, so their main thing was, like I said, strangulation. They did use knives sometimes, but like I said, for the reasons that you outlined earlier, they usually tried not to carry knives or swords just so they wouldn't, like, you know, arouse any suspicion.
Yeah, because from what I remember, this a long time ago, I was a kid when I was reading about this. The Indian civilians themselves were paranoid. They're scared to death about Thuggees slipping in. They were even asking the British to help them with them. So it makes sense that if this shit was actually going on, which I think it was, Indian civilians, if somebody was joining their party, they'd be like, probably frisk them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not carrying any weapons. They're not carrying any weapons. They're not Thuggees, maybe.
Yeah.
It was that kind of shit.
It might have been. So it's like, but like I said, you can kill people with shit other than
the knife,
knives or guns or something like that. Like
they probably knew that they were being strangled too, because they were very covert. But how could you prove everybody's carrying a belt? Everybody's carrying fucking scarves.
Yeah, it's like, what?
It.
It's like my neck was
They're
cold.
just blending in.
You know?
So
I had to keep my pants up.
Right. Yeah.
What are you going to do? Like I said...
I'm not sure the Indians wore belts. I mean, I'm just...
Honestly,
saying.
well, and I was going to say that, like, some serial killers have killed women with their own pantyhose.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? So they didn't bring anything.
Yeah.
They just pull the pantyhose off and strangle you with that.
Yep.
I mean, anything like that, you can strangle people with that. So it's like, you know what I mean? So you don't have to be, like, carrying around weapons like you're some kind of badass or something.
And if you're using teamwork, you said that somebody slips up behind somebody while another person's
another person was distracting them. And I think they did that on quite a large scale because, like I said, I think what they would do, their MO, was to kind of ingratiate themselves with a slightly smaller group than theirs.
Yeah.
And they would even befriend them and, like, gain their trust, like, over a few days or whatever, and then they would, like, turn on them.
Yeah.
So, like, sometimes, too, they said now there are records of them using drugs, like drugging people. Sometimes they would usually use, like, Indian thornapple, which is kind of, like, makes you sort of delirious. So they would use that at times, like, to make it easier, I guess, to kind of make the people insensible so they didn't really know what was happening to them. But
kind of like scopolamine?
Yeah, like a similar kind of thing. So they would do that as well.
If there's anything to scopolamine. We did a whole show on
We did, yeah, that was a long time ago. I wouldn't mind, like, looking back into that, but... Yeah, we were talking about, like, that... What did they call it? Angel's trumpet, or...
Yeah, there may be something to it, but...
Because we have some of those plants, like, growing here just, like, naturally.
Yeah.
I never made any tea out of it or nothing, but...
I have a hard time believing it's as powerful as they say.
Well, you know, it might be like another thing like absinthe where everybody's just kind of like, ooh, I had all these hallucinations and stuff. Yeah. And it's just, it doesn't really do that.
We'll get a hold of some and I'll fucking dose myself and you see if you can get me to do some crazy shit.
Okay.
Yeah. If y'all can get scopolamine, send
it's
some.
A deal.
I heard it just makes you sick feeling.
Which that doesn't sound like much fun to me, honestly.
Right, yeah.
I don't really just want something. That's why I never really did like ayahuasca or nothing like that because it's just kind of like, yeah, it's like amazing, but then like it makes you like sick as a dog, and I'm just like, it doesn't sound like
actually
it's not worth it.
I saw one of the guys that I'll follow every now and then who's traveled all over the world went to go get some of that shit, ayahuasca. It made him sick, and he said, "Yeah, you get high, but it's nothing compared to LSD. LSD's much better."
Yeah, like I said, I think it's
like, mostly bullshit.
Yeah. And the thing about LSD is that you kind of feel like crap the next day. Yeah. I didn't feel sick the next day. I mostly just felt really, really tired. Really tired, and my face was really sore, like from smiling so much. I mean, it was like a hangover. Like it was a bad hangover, but I didn't feel nauseated. You know what I mean? I just felt like really, really worn out. That's all. So it wasn't. In some ways, it was worse than a hangover, but some ways it wasn't as bad because I didn't have that like queasy, like I'm about to barf kind of feeling. But you know, but I did kind of feel like crappy the next day. But anything that's gonna make me throw up or anything like that, no, that doesn't really sound like much fun. It doesn't sound like much fun. So now there are actually records going back to the 16th century of something called thags with a th. I didn't say a word. I didn't say a slur. And they were gangs of robbers, and they would do essentially the same thing that thuggees were doing. They would just kind of lure victims, and they would like take their shit and kill them and everything like that. So there have been accounts of that going back to like the 1600s or like the 1600s. And there may be earlier ones than that. And this particular account that came from the 16th century did mention the same method of strangling, although he didn't say they used a scarf. He said they used like a like kind of a particular kind of noose that like slipped, you know what I mean, like I guess like a slip knot type of thing. So which sounds kind of similar. So that kind of thing makes me believe that yes, this shit was real. You know what I mean? Like, this kind of shit was actually going on. Like I said, I don't know the extent of it or anything like that. But yeah, they did say in the 1600s, too, that there were roving gangs of these people, and that, as far as he knew, that some of them were, like, related, and it was like a family thing where they would pass it from generation to generation, which is another thing that a lot of people said about thuggees. So the thing about it, like I said, some of them did have knives, which they called a katar. And some of them would wear them on their chest, but like I said, a lot of times they wouldn't wear them just for, so they wouldn't seem suspicious or anything like that. But yeah, the whole cloth or scarf thing, they use that for obvious purposes, and it actually had a name. It was called a rumal, like a scarf, but it, like I said, yellow, but not like bright yellow like you're probably picturing. It was just kind of like a khaki or a beige kind of color. And as I said, the reason that they used strangulation mainly was because there was a weird loophole in the law from the 1500s onward, and to get a death sentence in a murder, like the letter of the law said you had to shed the blood of the victim to get a death sentence. But if you didn't do that, you still killed the person, but you didn't shed their blood. Like, a lot of times you get a lighter sentence. So that was why.
That's funny.
Yeah, you'd still get a prison and like you do hard labor and stuff like that, but you wouldn't get the death penalty. Like, you wouldn't get executed. So a lot of them were using that as kind of like, hey, technically, you know what I mean? Which you'd think that they would have thought of that, like, when they were
it'd be like any
writing
organized crime syndicate. You're gonna fucking know the laws and try to fucking skirt.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah, it's just kind of
that kind of adds.
Well, it says this, but if we do this,
which kind of adds to me. That kind of adds to the credence to these stories.
Yeah,
because that's what an organized crime culture would do. They were like, well, it says you cannot shed blood. Okay, we won't shed blood then.
We'll just strangle him to death.
Yeah, we'll strangle him. Yeah,
easy peasy. Right. High Desert said a lot of celebrities have tried ayahuasca and they don't seem any better, which sounds like it's just a crappy trip with all the poop and vomit.
That's exactly what.
Yeah, like I said, I felt kind of crappy after LSD, but not like poop and vomit crappy. Just tired and worn out crappy.
No, there was a guy. I can't remember the dude's name. Fuck, what's that dude's name? He's on YouTube. He's traveled all over the fucking world. And he goes to Central America to do ayahuasca, among other things. And he takes it, sits up in a fucking hammock inside of like a tent thing, and gets sick, and then goes over there and fucking, he just lays around high. And next day he was like, yeah, it's a mind-altering drug, but it's nothing compared to fucking LSD or fucking, what was another one that he said? He said he thought mescaline was a lot better. He thought it was just like a really cheap, crappy hallucination experience. So, I have experience with all that shit. Fucking some of the shit that I've heard, like Joe Rogan and some of his guests, talking about, fucking elf spirits talking to you and fucking elemental spirits. It sounds awful cool, It sounds like that's fucking super, like it's more than what LSD would be. But most of the people that are just like man on the ground stories from the West, people that have fucking experience in hallucinogens, they said no, it was just kind of a crappy high. It wasn't that good, and they didn't have any of that.
That's what I've heard also.
So
I don't think it'd be worth all the barfing.
I always endorse blotter acid if it's high quality. If you know what you're doing,
that's the good shit.
Don't only get it high with somebody who knows exactly what's going on. Don't go anywhere. You stay in your house. Okay?
At least the first few times
trip
until
balls.
you know.
Yeah, just trip balls. And you do your spirit walk. Hell yeah. That's good. LSD is fucking tried and true. It's proven. As long as you can get the real thing. You don't want to get something. If it's blotter, usually it's acid. It's hard to lace that with other stuff, but that's the one you want to go for. It's more purified.
Yeah.
It works.
It does.
And some people are very intimidated by it. It's a very controllable drug. You don't feel intoxicated. Like where you're like alcohol. I love alcohol, but in alcohol you're intoxicated.
Yeah, you're kind of sloppy. And
you're
not
sloppy.
Really... Yeah.
You're not like that. You're crystal
LSD
clear.
is not like that.
It's very visual, very mental. And real good for PTSD, which I have that. A lot of guys come back from, and they've actually prescribed LSD for dudes that have PTSD to fucking,
I could see that being really helpful.
Yeah. Help them out. It's not something that you want to do regularly. It's
like a once in a while.
Once every year,
and like
couple
I said,
years, like that.
For the first few times, be with somebody that's experienced in it, and can watch you.
Yeah,
because you don't want to do anything. I didn't do anything dangerous.
She wanted to go outside and roll around in the damn
he's like,
garden.
He's like, we're not going outside.
Because she thought like a werewolf. I
thought it was a werewolf.
You stay here. You'll be all right. It passed.
No, just go, yeah.
But had I said, okay, let's do it, she'd have done that. You know, and the neighbors have been like, what the fuck are they doing rolling around?
On a Tuesday afternoon.
On a Tuesday afternoon, we were doing the shit every day. And I was fucking toasted. UPS showed up. I had to sign for a package. And I fucking walked out.
That
like
was
this,
fucking
and I was just
hilarious.
Like, and I was like,
and I remember it crystal clear.
And the dude's handed me a thing. I said, look, man, I'm really fucking high right now.
I'm tripping.
And he just laughed.
He laughed his ass off.
And I said, okay, all right. Okay.
And you're like, he thought it was so
I thought
funny.
the cops were coming for me.
He thought it was so funny.
Somebody's at the door.
Well, we didn't answer the door for like a long time. So like trying to look out the window.
UPS.
Who is that?
It's UPS. Yeah.
We had to sign for a package. I don't even remember what the package was, but we had to sign for it.
So you take that if you're going to do that for the first time, be with somebody who's experienced, and that is some serious shit. It's a spiritual experience every time I do it, and I respect it very much. I consider it to be kind of like a holy time to take that. That's a
good way of looking at it.
Yeah, so you have to really respect it, and it's good to do every couple of years for me. When I was younger, I'd do it maybe once a year if I could get my hands on it, but I'd like to do it again. You want to do it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do it again, Ben.
Yeah.
I can get it. I know all the drug dealers.
We'll
Let me go get you another drink.
Yeah, okay. All right, so, like I said, they had, as you would with any kind of organized crime thing or whatever, you had, like, different specialties. Now, one of the biggest specialties was what they called the river thugs. And these were, like, gangs that would operate, obviously, on the river. Ganges, usually. And the interesting thing... Okay, so... The Thuggee also had their own dialect. Or I guess you would call it... I thought of it as kind of like Cockney rhyming slang. Or something like that, where you'd have like your own code words for stuff. And you had like your own little language. So like nobody knew what you were talking about. Because you were like saying stuff in code. And the Thuggee did have that. It was actually called Ramasi. That was their dialect, if you want to call it that. And the River Thugs actually had their own version of it because they were, like, doing their own thing. And they had a thing, too, where it's just kind of like, for whatever reason, I'm not really sure why, but they preferred to attack people during the day rather than at night, and I don't really know why that is. And they were also kind of known for when they killed people. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right. We ran out of orange juice today. Yeah. When they killed people, they would kind of snap the corpse, like break the spinal column, and then they would throw it into the river because then the crocodiles would eat it. And then they would take all their stuff. You know what I mean? So... It seems to be like, I mean, that's a good place to, like, get rid of bodies, right? Because crocodiles. So, as I said, they kind of had, each group had their own, they had their own ranking system. And it was kind of like a military kind of operation. So, the leader of the group was called a jemadar. I'm sure I'm butchering these names, so I apologize. And that was from, like, a military style. That's where they got that word from. And they would even call, like, the subordinates or whatever, they would call them, like, privates or what their equivalent of privates was. And, as I said, they had their own kind of jargon or their own kind of dialect of code words and things like that, so nobody knew what they were talking about. Most people, it was in the sense of, like, a mafia where it was, like, family members and like older members would train the younger members into it, or sometimes people would fall into it through desperation or whatever because they didn't have any other options in life or whatever. But the thing about it was that, I mean, it seemed like it was largely family based or profession based seem to be like the two main things. And a lot of times the older ones would train the younger ones. There were actually female thuggies also, and there was actually even a name for them. They were called barony. So they did the same shit that the male ones did. Now, even though they were kind of like mafia style, much like the like Italian mob or like other mobs that we're more familiar with in the United States, they did have something of a code of honor or a code of conduct, which they would break sometimes depending on the circumstances, but it did seem like they usually tried to avoid killing children. What they would usually do is that they would kill everybody in the group, and then they would adopt the children, and then, you know...
That makes sense.
Kind of brainwash them into the...
What I remember, the British were saying that they were abducting children to that's how they got new members. So that makes sense.
They were known to do that. Yeah.
From the point of view of the Thuggee, well, we're not going to kill these children, but we'll raise them.
Yeah, that's what they usually ended up
Which
doing.
could be interpreted as we're going to abduct the children.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes, like, some of them had particular beliefs, like, we don't want to kill women and children, but that didn't mean that they wouldn't do it. It's like sometimes they would get, like, you know, more assholic members of the group, or people that weren't, like, were Muslims or something like that, or somebody that didn't have the same beliefs as them to do it. You know what I mean? So they would... So then that way they could, like, keep their conscience clear. I guess, well, I didn't kill them. I just told this other motherfucker to do it. You know what I mean? So apparently some of them did that a lot, too. And a lot of them, too, like you said, they kind of traveled around a lot, and usually wouldn't do... Because, you know, a lot of them had their own, like, regular, quote-unquote, lives and families and stuff like that. And they would just do this part of the year. So they would go kind of far afield to do this stuff, obviously because they didn't want to be recognized or, you know what I mean, or, you know, have their reputation sullied or anything like that. So, like I said, no one's entirely sure where they think that the first mention of these, because there's like a lot of mentions of these in different historians, you know, writings and stuff like that. Some of the stories go back to 1760, which was maybe kind of like, because they did catch a guy in the 1800s, and he said that they had been around since the time of Alexander the Great, which I'm not sure if I buy that or not. But maybe. I mean, that could be.
That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. But so, like I said, it's kind of hard to just go by individual dudes that they captured, because it's like they're obviously just repeating the lore,
what they heard,
that they've heard from like other people in there. So it's like, oh, we've been around since Alexander the Great. I'm like,
get the fuck out.
I don't know.
It's like saying you've been around since Moses.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not crazy because, I mean, essentially they're just like groups of they're like mafias or like groups of highwaymen, which have existed for as long as humans have existed.
Probably always existed. It's just that they're not. It's not probably directly the same group.
Right.
That'd be like saying we're criminals. Criminals go back to the fucking time of fucking fucking pharaohs.
I think they're making more like a joke, which is true.
Yeah, it's true, but that's not you.
We're not talking about the exact same. So it might just be that he's just making like a more generalization. So the earliest known reference to thugs or thuggies as like a literal like band or like a group or a cult of people rather than just a bunch of robbers or whatever, actually came from 1356, like in a book that was written back then.
So it's contemporary.
Yeah, so it's possible that it does go back that far.
Yeah. Because
a book that came out then did mention them, and it mentioned a sultan at that time arresting 1,000 of them and like you know, kicking them out of the kingdom or whatever. So it could be that that's the earliest known mention of them. Like,
well, it's contemporary mention. Did
1356.
Did it say that these thuggies were a bunch of criminals and murderers?
It essentially referred to them as like a fraternity.
Okay.
So
Could it
Yeah.
be? Could
I
it
mean,
be
like,
the later Thuggees just modeled themselves off of
That's
that kind
possible
of stuff?
too. That's possible.
We may not
too.
be talking about the same thing.
Right.
You might be talking about.
See, you never know.
You might be talking about like an army or
Right.
something. You know what I mean? An army with a different political persuasion type of deal. Or
That's what
different
I mean.
religion.
It's like, because over the years, over the centuries,
Everything kind of morphs. And
stuff, and like the meanings of words kind of change and stuff like that. So it's like what they were referring to in the 1300s might not be exactly the same thing as you know, as the Thuggee were referring to themselves like in the late 19th century, like when the British colonial authorities
some groups
like
will
came.
name themselves after groups that came before, and there's nothing has anything to do with it. It'd be interesting to know. I mean, it's possible. It's possible.
Sure.
It could just be because the word Thuggee might just mean mafia, basically.
That's what I mean.
Or criminals.
Well, normally, I mean, that word basically just means swindler.
Swindlers.
So it means like anybody that's like a robber or that kind of criminal. So it's just kind of like it might just be a later interpolation.
Yeah.
That we're referring to it as a thing.
As a thing, and
like as an organized organized groups of.
Yeah, as the Thuggee that you know from Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Because it was never one big thing. It was never one big group. It was always like a bunch of groups.
Yeah.
But they all were all kind of united by the way they did shit, like usually strangling people with scarves. That was kind of their big thing.
Yeah.
And also, and this might have been a later add-on from like British colonialism with the worship of Kali, and that's why they were
Here's the way to look at it if you're American. Thuggee might also just mean gangbanger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Fucking, they're not all the same gang, though. See? They're not all exactly the same
I'm kind of thinking they're not probably doing the same shit.
Just gangbanger. You know, this dude down the hood. Fucking walks around like a tough guy. Might have a gun. Maybe he doesn't have a gun. You know, that's a gang.
I kind of feel like it's probably...
So it might be something more like that.
About the same thing.
Yeah.
And they're not doing it for any larger purpose or anything like that. Because I think the whole Kali worship thing, I think that part might have been added on.
Well, that would be
later.
the delineating line.
That's what I'm saying.
If you're just a fucking crook, you're just a crook.
Yeah.
But if you're a crook and you're doing it for Kali, then you're a Thuggee. If you'd
and then it's an organized.
That's a new thing.
Yeah.
So I would say,
and it's an organized thing. You're doing it because of that.
Yeah, and you're using Kali as a fucking figurehead, just like if you're a cartel member, you're gonna have Santa Muerte in there. If you don't have Santa Muerte in there, you're just mafia. You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
You're just mafia. So we're trying to define shit that's kind of.
It's nebulous.
Kind of nebulous anyway.
It's nebulous. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's just kind of like. I can see where historians are coming from, being like, well, we don't even know if this is a real thing. But it's like, it's definitely a real thing, but we just don't know if it's a real thing with all the parameters that people think of when they think of this. You know what I'm saying?
I'm sure some of them probably were, eventually, what you would call a Thuggee, like out of Indiana Jones.
With the magic stones and all that.
With Kali.
Which was a complete invention, by the way.
That's probably.
But the thing about them worshiping Kali, that was, I don't know if that was true, but that was something that was attributed to them going at least as far back as the British colonialist period.
Like I mentioned that it was happening in the British colonial. But by that time, it probably was.
It might have been. Although it has been
India is big into religions. They got a shit ton of them. So yeah, it probably does.
It has been noted, like some historians actually think maybe that it was actually the Muslim tribes that came there and taught them that. So it's like, so obviously they weren't worshiping Kali, but they had like a similar kind of thing going on.
Like Hashashins, like assassins?
Yeah, like a similar
Although
kind
I'm
of
not
thing.
sure the assassins were actually assassins. They probably were just fighters.
Yeah.
But, you know, hard to say. We got to do some on them. The hashish smokers.
Yeah.
That's all that means.
That might be
Hashashins.
Yeah.
But I just think they were just Islamic warriors. They just fucking fought hard and they smoked hashish before they went into battle. They weren't assassins, I don't think. Just fighters.
Well,
like we say, assassin, that's somebody you send out to kill
a specific
person for money. I don't think that's what they were doing. I think they were just kind of resistance fighter type deals. tribal warriors.
Well, yeah, that's what's so fascinating and also so difficult about kind of parsing out history as a whole is because, one, words kind of mean different things at different times and in different cultures. And also, in the West, we're only hearing a particular perspective on things, which is maybe sometimes was written by Western interests, which maybe it was in their interest to maybe demonize another culture or like make them look weirder than they were or whatever. So
or
it's
more
just kind of so it might be that we're not understanding it because of that.
The Assassins, I think, were probably the closest word would be like the Fedi'in. You know what I mean? The holy warrior.
Right.
Probably all it was. But maybe that's something for another show. Who the assassins were.
Yeah, because I mean that word,
Yeah.
That might be. I'm gonna write that.
That might make a good. I know very little about it, just side stuff.
Yeah, I mean I've heard that.
Knowing how shit works, they were Islamic dudes or desert Bedouins that fucking smoked hashish before they went into battle. But I like to find out exactly where that comes from. Hashish smokers, hashashins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they think that's where the word assassin came from.
Yeah. But they're probably
which
just
literally does not mean the same thing at all, is it?
They're probably mean Fedi'in, holy warrior. In Dune, they called him Fedakeen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he knew his shit. He knew what he was talking about.
Oh yeah. That was Frank Hubert.
Frank Herbert, yeah. He knew what he was talking about.
He knew what he was talking about.
So, yeah, you do all research into this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But see, that goes into the whole like word history and like word origin and stuff like that, which like I'm really into language and stuff, so it's like that kind of shit like fascinates me, where words came from and why they mean what they mean nowadays, and they don't mean the same thing as before. Like I said, you know, the word Thuggee used to mean just swindler, which doesn't sound that big a deal. That sounds like somebody that would get you at 3-card Monte, like
you're talking about crooks
on a street in New York City.
He's a crook.
Right. But then as time went on,
it becomes this way.
It becomes this very specific
type of thing
where it's like these people that are in these big gangs, and it's like they strangle people like ritually, and they worship Kali and all this other kind of stuff. So it's just kind of like, it's just kind of interesting to me how that happened. And like I said, it's interesting too how the English word thug has kind of taken on not an entirely different meaning, but it's kind of taken on a slightly different meaning. It's along the same lines, but not really exactly the same. But yeah, so there are some historians that think that maybe that it was actually the Muslim tribes that fled Delhi. There's like all these origin stories about like, oh, there's Muslim tribes that killed this dude and then they fled from Delhi, and like that was where the Thuggee came from. And it's like then eventually they, you know, the Muslims taught the Hindi like this and that, and it's like it eventually morphed into what it was. But like I said, they don't really know because there's not a huge amount of like historical data about it. There's mentions of it, but no one's entirely sure like what they were. So there was a dude whose name was Donald MacLeod, and he was the lieutenant governor of the Punjab province, and he supposedly like led a campaign against them, and he wrote a bit about them also, and he seemed to think that they were originally Muslims, and that the original Thuggee were actually sacrificing people to different deities, not Kali obviously, but maybe Bhavani or Devi or some of the other ones. Because like I said, there's a recurring thing about Thuggees, the Hindi ones, that they were killing people to sacrifice to Kali to quote-unquote restore the balance of the universe. That's a thing that comes up a lot when you watch stuff about Thuggees. So they thought, and I don't think this is true, but the implication is that they thought they were doing something good by like killing all of these people. And because the thing about Kali, I don't know a huge amount about her as a goddess, But a lot of people seem to see her as like a demonic figure because she's the goddess of destruction, but she's the goddess of creation also. She's not just a destruction goddess.
You have to destroy things.
Well, yeah, so it's a lot more nuanced than I think, because I think people, because she looks scary, like in depictions of her,
she's
with all the arms and like the black.
She's a corpse with 4 arms.
Yeah, she's got all these arms and like and her tongue hanging out and all this other kinds of
skirt of heads. And shit.
Yeah, so she looks scary. So I think that immediately, like, you know, Westerners are gonna be like, "Oh, Satan," you know what I mean? But it's a lot more nuanced than that. You know, she's not evil.
She's just doing what she does.
Well,
the end.
The thing
and
about
the beginning.
Here's the thing. The thing about Eastern religions is they seem a lot more comfortable with nuance and with the ambiguity of actual real life.
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of their gods would represent, it's like, yeah, they'll do good shit, but they'll also fuck you up, just like nature would.
Yeah.
Whereas I kind of feel like
Western religion,
it's a lot more like Western religion is a lot more black and white, which I think is a lot less akin to reality. I think.
Yeah, Western religions have a lot to do with Gnosticism.
Yeah,
which is if you think the right way, if you're thinking the right things, then you'll be okay, type of deal. And everything is very black and white.
Which is not the case.
It was like the PC of the day, I guess you could say, and really that's kind of plagued Europe throughout its whole history. Is like a very black and white view of things, you know,
which is kind of an
led to witch hunting and
way to look at things, honestly, because the world is not like that.
Europe was one big virtue signal. They were virtue signaling. They'll kill women over virtue signaling. There's the witches. They did all kinds of weird shit.
We did that here too.
Which is that was
not as bad.
Not as bad.
We still did it.
The American Revolution had a lot to do with fucking getting away from fucking like a real hard the Enlightenment came. Yeah, so they were trying to get away from superstitions and religious extremism, you know.
Best thing to happen to humanity.
Yeah.
Enlightenment.
Yeah, try to go more for the middle.
Just chill the fuck out.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and like I said, so in that sense, I'm not a big religion fan. I'm not a fan of any religion, really. But I will say that Eastern religions are a lot more open to nuance. Morally gray kind of.
Yeah.
They understand that nature is not a benevolent or a malevolent force. It can be either, depending on the circumstance. You know what I mean? And I think they have a more healthy relationship with nature being indifferent to you. Which I kind of feel like Western religions seem to struggle with.
More a better view, more healthy view on death too.
That also.
Yeah.
But you know, because like I said, it's not.
But we have
when bad shit happens to you, it's not. That doesn't mean you're a bad person or nothing like that. It's just shit happens. Bad shit happens to good people. Good shit happens to bad people. There's no reason for it.
If you go back in time, all the way back to the Greek
There's no reason for it.
Go back to the Greek Golden Age. And with that, if you were sick or if you were deformed, that meant you were a bad person.
Yeah, that was your fault.
Yeah, it was your fault.
And like I said, I kind of feel like there's still a strain of that in Western thinking even today. Yeah. Like, if you look kind of fucked up or you looked, well, something, you must have done something to cause that.
Yeah.
You must have brought that on yourself.
The West has a lot of good things about it. But
But I think that
there's
is
certain
a really
elements of it.
Insidious.
Yeah.
Because that really informs a lot of people's thinking and opinions. And that's a really fucked up way of looking at stuff.
What survives through European history is a lot of black and white thinking.
Yeah.
With the exception of some of the Roman writings.
Which is not great.
But even the Roman writings, shit that Julius Caesar wrote was still kind of black and white. Like, these German barbarians are barbarians. Fucking doesn't matter if we starve them out during a fucking siege and fucking rape their women and shit. They're barbarians. It's very black and white.
Yeah.
There was none of this stuff.
Yeah, they're like, we're humans. They're not humans. Like I said, the second you start talking about another human being as subhuman or not the same as you, then that's the first step to, like, we're just going to eliminate those people.
Yeah, and that was... a lot of cultures were like that. The Chinese were like that, but the Europeans were fucking... even though the science and shit came, it's just that there wasn't a lot of fucking reason when it came, at certain times when it came to
sad,
conflict.
really.
They, you know, they were like, these people are savages. We're gonna get rid of them and enslave them. You know.
Yeah.
It was just kind of the thing that they did. And, you know, not pointing any fingers, me and Jen, you know, we have our European origins, and fucking, you go back into our genealogy, you're going to have Romans and Germans, barbarians and Romans. We're products of them both, because they all interbred.
Yeah.
So we were on both sides of it. And they all had good things to offer. It's just
well,
that,
everyone does. There's good and bad about everything.
Yeah, it's just that Europe had a fucking history of virtue signaling.
I'm just saying that it's like its proclivity toward black-white thinking.
Yeah.
Has, I feel like, been its greatest downfall.
Yeah, it is.
Or like the greatest thorn in its side. I don't want to say downfall because I don't really prevented it from doing shit, but it's just kind of like
it's religious and
it's very persistent too. Like it's very persistent, and it comes out in ways that you don't expect.
Religious and ideological extremism from in the European race. Really,
yeah,
it happens even in
which is scary to me
yeah.
because it's like I didn't inherit that gene, thank God, but it's just kind of like I see it in other people and it scares the fucking shit out of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm not sure if it's gene. It's just maybe.
I know. I just make that joke.
It's a cultural.
Like, I don't
thing.
think it's a gene, but it's But I grew up in this culture too, and it's like I didn't get inoculated with that. I didn't, you know.
At a certain age, you're supposed to be able to think your way out of it. Most people that fucking wrote these rules didn't live very long.
True.
You know what I mean?
And well, one thing I figured out when I was pretty young was that these people that wrote all this highfalutin stuff and everything like that, I'm like, they're probably no smarter than I am, and maybe they might be substantially dumber.
Yeah, and then they didn't live long, and they didn't have access to the information that we have now.
Yeah, and it's like they didn't have as much life experience in the sense that, like, they don't know the shit that we know now and all this other kind of stuff. So it's just kind of like this whole looking back at the past and, oh, you know, ancients, and they knew all this stuff, and it's just like they didn't know shit about shit. Come on.
I can go back and read.
I mean, some stuff is universal, but
you can go back and read Julius Caesar, you know what he was doing in the fucking in Germania or Germania, and it reads like something that was written today of a modern man.
I have read some ancient Greek shit, but I've read some Plato and stuff like that did sound like it was written like it was written like pretty modern. It sounded pretty modern.
Julius would be like it was written today, but then all of a sudden, you realize, motherfucker got no concept of human rights at all.
No,
you know.
Like it didn't even occur to him.
No, that a Roman citizen was fucking, he could do whatever he wanted because he was a Roman citizen.
Yeah.
You know, and these people weren't Roman citizens, they're just...
Which to us, that's an alien concept.
Yeah, we're going to...
But to them, it was not.
Yeah, so I'm going to unleash my troops and they can rape the women for a while, they'll have a good time, then I'll call them back. And then fucking, you know what I mean? They're already
It's
defeated.
okay.
Yeah, they're
just women.
It's just German women.
They're just German.
Yeah,
women.
like
it's not like they're people or anything.
Yeah, and then we'll sell them into slavery. We'll bring them back to Rome.
Yeah, they're talking about them like they're pigs. I wouldn't even talk about pigs like that. Yeah, to be honest.
Well, they thought they were totally uncivilized savages.
Yeah,
subhuman.
Like I said, anytime you start talking about other humans as though they are less than human.
Yeah, then you could do all kinds of weird
red flag because that justifies doing anything you want to.
In the infantry, fucking before you do anything, is you must dehumanize the enemy.
Yeah.
If not, you won't be able to kill him. And that was the mode that he was in.
Which, in a way, that kind of makes me feel better because it's like the fact that you have to go through kind of mental hoops to do that for most people to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Is good. That's encouraging.
Yeah,
because most people are kind of like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
which is good.
Well, the Roman economy wasn't run on taxpayer money; it was run on plunder.
Yeah.
So in order for the Roman Empire and the Republic to make money, you had to take ground, and to steal shit. You had to steal gold and women. And you sold them as slaves. That was basically what they were doing.
Because, like I said, it was
a pirate civilization. Really, they're doing what pirates did.
Until fairly recently, women were considered kind of less than sheep. Honestly.
Yeah, they were more like possessions.
Yeah, they were just property, like your sheep or your cows were.
In a lot of the world, they're still like that.
Yeah, and some people would like to take us back to that.
Yeah,
which I hope never happens, but you know, we'll see. Shaby says Papa can't go back to work until May 5th. Shit, man. That's 2 weeks, right? Holy crap. 2 weeks? Yeah. Damn. They're concerned about a blood clot in his lungs. That's not good. Papa says very sore, but still alive. Man, I hope you're okay. Holy shit. I mean, I don't know what to say. It's just kind of I'm glad you're being looked after. Is all I can say. That's all I can say. I just hope nothing bad happens. Just I don't believe in prayers or any of that kind of shit. But it's just like I'm hoping for the best for you. That's all I can say. Seriously. Yeah. So yeah, I'll live. You just gotta fucking tough it out, man. Shit happens, and it sucks, but you're like our age, right? Or younger. You'll get through it. I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you from over here in another fucking state. So, all right. So where was I? So here's the thing. Okay, so like I said before, because a lot of historians were like kind of like there's this whole story about Thuggee specifically being worshippers of Kali. Even the British colonialists, as far as I'm aware, said that of the Thuggees that they captured, up to a third of them were actually Muslims. So actually not Kali worshippers, obviously, because that's not the same kind of thing. But there was kind of a story that the ones that were Kali worshippers, they said that they came from Kali's sweat.
Yeah. She just sweated them out.
She sweated them out. Okay.
They must have had some story they were talking about.
Yeah, that was kind of like their origin story. Like
yeah.
we were each like a drop of her. I'm like,
yeah, her working her ass off trying to eliminate you motherfuckers, making us rich.
With her tongue hanging out and
yeah.
the skirt with the heads on. I wanted to do that for a costume one year.
Y'all made us.
I couldn't figure out how to do the arms without it looking cheesy though.
Y'all made us poor. Kali's trying to make us rich. You're gonna steal your shit.
Because I always thought, here's the thing. I was going to do Kali for Halloween a couple years back. But one, I couldn't afford it. Two, I couldn't figure out a good way to do the arms without it looking cheeseball. And three, and this is going back several years, I found out that model, Heidi Klum, had done a Kali costume, and it was awesome. It looked so good, because she has, like, all the money. So it's like, obviously, she can afford to do a better Halloween costume than I can. And I was like, well, I can't top that. I mean, she went to a party or something like that, and there were pictures of her, like, on the internet. I'm like, God damn it, you bitch.
I want to know how...
It's like, that looks fantastic.
I want to know how the Muslims got caught up in this. They must have not been very religious Muslims.
See, that's what I'm saying. Because it's like, a lot of them that they caught were Muslims. And I don't think they were that religiously... I think, like I said, I think the Kali worship thing, I think that was a later addition.
Yeah.
By the British colonial authorities, like trying to make them seem scarier. Like I said, it was like a satanic panic thing. That was just kind of what my vibe was, because from everything that I saw, like from contemporary sources and stuff like that, so they didn't seem particularly religious, or they weren't doing things for religious reasons. They were just doing stuff because they were like criminals.
Yeah, so that's probably what the deal was.
Like they didn't really have any reason. Like, ooh, Kali, we're trying to restore balance in the universe. We just want your jewels, motherfucker.
Yeah, and then you know. And then you have guys from Islamic cultures getting involved in it, and which is basically what happened with the Barbary Coast pirates. There was a lot of Islamic piracy. A lot of the pirates were Muslims.
Yeah,
doesn't have a whole lot to do with Islam. It's just that so that's probably what they're talking about.
That's what I'm saying. It's just kind of feel like when someone is a religion. And they do specific things. I kind of feel like people say that, well, they're doing specific things because of that religion. I'm like, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Because lots of people of lots of different religions do that same behavior, and it doesn't have anything to do with the religion.
Yeah, I got friend Saad. He lives in Saudi Arabia and shit. We fucking trade messages all the time, and sometimes we'll talk about the misunderstandings that happens between the fucking Islamic world and the Western world. Sometimes you have Islamic guys looking at Western porn stars thinking that Christianity did it. Those are Christian women are porn stars. No.
Yeah, which is funny, but it's like from the outside, you can see.
Yeah, right. That's what that is like. That those girls are not religious, even though some of them might. Even though a lot of the porn stars, the big name, a significant proportion of them actually come from fucking Mormons.
But see, I can see how that happens.
But they're not practicing Mormonism.
Because they grow up in, like, such repressive background. They have such repressive backgrounds that it's like, obviously, when they get older, they're just going to bust out and be like, fuck that shit.
Yeah, and they don't come ready equipped with all the skills they need to make a bunch of money. But they can make a bunch of money if they're beautiful in fucking porn and prostitution.
Yeah. But yeah, that's actually like a good analogy because it's like, look, that has nothing to do with
Mormonism,
Christianity or Mormonism or anything like that. Even though a significant proportion of porn stars perhaps are ex-Mormons or came from like really restrictive like Christian backgrounds.
Right.
I mean, there's a psychological reason why that probably happens, but it doesn't have anything to do with the religion per se.
Yeah, and being Muslim doesn't make you a pirate. Doesn't make you a Barbary Coast pirate.
Yeah, it doesn't make you anything. You're a Barbary Coast pirate. It doesn't make you anything.
You just happen to be...
There's millions of Muslims in the world, and most of them are just normal-ass people.
Right.
Just like most of the Christians in the world, or most of the Hindus in the world are just normal-ass people.
They're just the products of those civilizations, but not directly. Not directly having anything to do with the religion.
Most people are just normal-ass people.
Yeah.
They're just living their goddamn lives.
Trying to make money.
Having their jobs, having their families, trying to get by, all that other kind of shit. It's just kind of like, you only see the extreme examples because that's all anybody notices. Yeah. So the problem is, and there's a word for this in psychology, but I can't remember what it is, but it's just kind of like, there's a problem when you only see the extreme outliers of stuff, and so you associate, especially if it's something that's different than you, a different religion or a different gender or whatever the fuck, and it's just kind of like, oh, well, all of them must be like that. Yeah, there's a lot. It's just like, no, that's just a weird outlier. Yeah, like most of the people aren't like that.
There's confusion, like even in England, they have fucking grooming gangs and shit from Pakistan. They say, well, it must be Islam doing it. These guys are all Muslims. No, they were doing that kind of shit before Islam. Fucking, it was just part of Pakistan and Afghanistan's culture. To take war brides and do all kinds of weird shit that's not quite codified. Because fucking, I talked to fucking friends in Saudi Arabia and motherfucking hardcore Islam. They're like, oh no, you can't do that. You can't rape people. I mean, fucking.
Like I said, most people are just normal.
Yeah, prostitution isn't legal in Islam. You know what I mean? Like
you're only hearing about the most extreme examples. You're only hearing about criminal behavior. Yeah. Because it's newsworthy.
Well, in the case of the Pakistanis over in England, they're just doing something that they've been doing even since before Islam. So it's pre-Islamic, some of that stuff. It's just that you can use Islam to justify your culture.
Right.
Very much.
Well, and a lot of people...
all religions are like that.
Yeah. Christianity is that too.
You can use Christianity to justify what it is you want to do. And
it's like, look, hey, I'm an old dude and I want some 13-year-old wives.
And it says right here...
And it says right here that I can do that.
Exactly.
I'm going to convert to Mormonism.
Right, yeah.
And I can marry like 5 13-year-old wives.
Yeah, and have a whole harem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So,
like I said, and I think I said this on a past show, religion doesn't make people shitty, but it makes shitty people have a justification and makes them feel better for doing what they're doing. Yeah. Now, I will note that if you were not a shitty person to start with and you get sucked into some weird religious cult, the religion can very much make you do shitty stuff. Yeah. But I don't think the religion necessarily... I think you were a shitty person to start with. Yeah. You already wanted to do that stuff. You just wanted a reason to feel better about it.
And to clarify to the audience, I'm a mythicist. I'm a Christian mythicist. I don't believe any of that happened, but I understand the mythology. I understand what the stories are trying to tell. Even though some of those stories, you really ain't worth a shit anymore. That's old stuff. And I see other religions the same way. I don't endorse any of those religions. But it doesn't mean that they're all shit and you throw them out. No, they all have some cool stories. They're just from their time. And they're from the cultures that made them. So, yeah, they're cool. And some people are, that's their culture. You have to respect their beliefs. And as long as they're not infringing on my rights, I'm all right with it. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, you can believe whatever you want.
Yeah, you're not going to tell me to believe it. I ain't going to believe it.
No.
It's just, fucking Christianity, a lot of it's fucking bullshit, And it's also not exactly what the Bible says, too.
Well, a lot of them don't read it, to be honest with you.
Religious organizations are going to twist things,
I've read it. A lot of them have not read it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. A lot of
Nothing will make you an atheist faster than reading
it.
The Bible.
Reading it and fucking and having an expert tell you where this came from and what time they were talking about. You can't take any of that shit out of context. You know, you got to know the difference between the Pauline materials and fucking what a gospel is and why there are four
and you have to
them.
and you have to know what was going on at the time, like what they were talking about.
Right. And who this original audience was in the 1st and 2nd century Rome, AD. You know, who is buying this material? Roman Jews. It's Roman Jews. Okay. The fucking Judea was a part of the Roman Empire. They were moving into the Roman capital, and they were there for several generations, and their religion, Judaism, kind of made them different than everybody else, and they felt more Roman than Judean. So they needed a new religion. So they rebooted the Jewish religion into something that was more Roman. You know it as Christianity.
Yeah.
More Greco-Roman version.
I mean, that's essentially all.
That's all it is.
It is.
And it is a sect.
It's Judaism through a Roman lens.
Exactly. And it is a sect. It is a sect of Judaism. It's not a separate religion. It's
a lot of Christians get mad when you point that out, but it's like that's exactly what it is.
It's the same thing happened here in the United States. You had Christians that wanted a more American version of Christianity. Mormonism. Church of Latter-day Saints. And it's not more ridiculous than your.
They're all equally.
They're all about the same.
They're all equally ridiculous.
They're all about the same. It's all.
From my perspective, they're all equally ridiculous.
They're all about the same. Yeah.
They're all good stories and shit.
Yeah.
Like I see where the stories came from, but they're all equally ridiculous. Some of the stories are better than others, like more imaginative.
The Mormons have some wild ass stories, man.
But if you believe it's real, then I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it's best to just look at it as mythology.
That's how I look at all of it.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
It's storytelling.
That doesn't mean it's wrong. That just means it's like it didn't literally happen.
It's storytelling.
It literally happened.
They're trying to give you a value system.
Yeah, they're trying to impart values.
Right.
That's all religion is. They're just trying to impart values through stories because that's how humans learn things. So, you know, I don't disparage it on that regard. I'm just saying that it's like believing it's literally true, then it's going to be a problem because obviously it's not. You did a whole show on creationism and why that makes me mad. But it's like, biblical literalism, I do not understand that at all. Because so much stuff in there is like, there's just no way. There's no way that could have literally happened. Any sane person would not believe any of that literally happened. So you believe it literally happened, then you've got some fucking issues. So as we were saying before, so I kind of feel like the religious angle for the Thuggees, as in, they worship Kali. We came from her sweat. Like, we're killing all these people as sacrifices to Kali, or otherwise she's going to destroy all of humanity. So we're doing a good thing. We're trying to restore balance to the universe. I think that was maybe a later addition because I think most of the records, and there aren't many, of the Thuggees that were captured in past times, they didn't, like, religion didn't really seem like a big motivation, you know what I mean? I think that was a later, like I said, I think it was kind of akin to like this satanic panic where they were just kind of, oh my god, this murder was so fucked up, they must have been Satanists or something like that. I think it was that kind of the same kind of energy, you know what I'm saying? So I think it was that. Now, according to reports, the Thuggee did actually, like I said before, they did seem to have like kind of an honor code where a lot of them wouldn't kill women, children. A lot of them also wouldn't kill like poets or musicians or dancers or something like that.
No cool people.
Yeah, they wouldn't kill cool people.
No cool people.
They're only killing lamos. Like from our point of view, they're only killing normies.
Yeah, normies.
So it's like, so it's okay. Yeah. You know what I mean?
If y'all cool, no.
We like the poets and the dancers and the musicians. You guys can hang. It's cool. We're not going to murder you guys, but these motherfuckers.
We didn't have TVs, so that's all they had. So don't fuck with the television set.
Yeah, that was like the only entertainment.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's like, why do you want to kill the fucking?
We gotta watch TV.
Yeah, why do you want to kill all that?
Yeah.
Like they can tell us poems and like dance and stuff, and maybe we can see their belly button. That'd be hot. So it's like, yeah, maybe that's what it is. It's like that, when I was reading that kind of made me laugh, because it's just kind of like, we talk about goth clubs all the time, and it's like how we're always like shitting on normies and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it's kind of the same thing. We're not going to kill anybody, obviously, but it's just kind of like, yeah, you're cool. Yeah, you're not so cool. Yeah. So it's that kind of it was that kind of thing. They had the same kind of thing going on. And they also didn't kill, unless they absolutely had to, according to reports, like disabled people.
Yeah.
Which, so, like I said, I guess, in a way, they had their own kind of, it's like, yeah, that'd be fucked up if we did that. Because it was just kind of like, if we do that, then Kali will punish us. If we fuck with disabled people or anything like that. Or people in, quote-unquote, lowly professions.
Somebody said I'm 100% on what they're facing in England. What we're facing in England. Yeah. Yeah, I've just studied it. I've listened to all the fucking dudes who know what's up, who are telling the truth, and fucking... My family actually has fucking Middle Eastern roots. My grandfather was fucking half Assyrian Christian. When fucking, he was half Syrian Christian, and then that part of the family all moved to Persia during the time before the fucking Ayatollah Khomeini. My grandfather worked for the Shah. Fucking, my grandfather was a big executive at fucking Grumman Aerospace, and fucking we were selling them fucking F-14 Tomcats. I got all kinds of stories about that. My granddad on my mother's side was a fucking huge aerospace contractor, defense contractor. My mother's side of the family, most of them are in the Middle East, in UAE, fucking, and Dubai, as well. They're related to my uncles, and two of my uncles are ex-fucking Task Force 160 Special Operations Aviation soldiers that. And they're helicopter pilots and bodyguards for some of the big rich dudes in fucking in Dubai. And no, fucking I lived in Egypt for a year. I fucking had a good time there when I was in the army. Fucking the Middle East has a lot of good qualities about it. It's in turmoil right now. If you ask me, I think Saudi Arabia should control it. Most of it,
I don't know about that, but yeah, okay.
Well, a lot of it has to do with Islam, and that's where fucking Mecca is. And no, I think Iran should stay independent, but a lot of those other countries they're fucking crazy, some of these groups. But it's not so much, it's like you said, it's not so much religion as culture. And Afghanistan and Pakistan have nothing to do with what's going on in, say, Saudi, or fucking Dubai, Saudi's fucking turned out to be a fucking real nice country, and they don't have a lot of the problems that we have here in the West. But each country has its own character. A lot of the problems you have in the West we like those problems. We create them because we like to be who we are. So we just have to modify certain things to keep shit in balanced, but. Yeah, you know the deal.
Stevie says, yeah, the news only show Muslims when a terrorist attack happens. And it ends up being a white supremacist or responsible, like the Oklahoma City bombing.
Yeah.
The news said it was something else. I did notice that it's like, if and we have a lot of mass shootings in the U.S., if the mass shooter is not white, then they will immediately be like, oh, Muslim terrorist or whatever it is. But if it's a white dude, it's just a lone wolf. They don't blame it on Christianity, ever. I've never heard that happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll blame it on violent video games. I've seen that happen a few times.
Yeah.
Or some other things. But usually they'll just say, oh, he was mentally ill. But if it was I'm not saying they're not. Yeah. I'm just saying if it was a brown dude, they never say that dude was just mentally ill. They always say terrorist.
Yeah.
That's very common.
Well, we've covered some of that stuff. Some of it might kind of be like the dude that shot up the Pulse nightclub up the street from us. Yeah. But
I don't think that dude was a terrorist, though. I think he was just a very mentally ill dude who happened to not be white.
He wasn't a terrorist in the way that he wasn't involved in a terrorist organization.
No.
He was from Afghanistan.
And I think he said that shit later.
Yeah.
Just to get some street cred. I don't think he believed any of that.
He just started saying that at the time.
Yeah.
He was a Pashtun. Wasn't that right? Pashtun?
I think so.
Yeah, from Afghanistan. And those guys kind of have homosexual backgrounds. when they're.
I think he was a self-hating.
He was a self-hating gay.
I think that's what his problem was. So that wasn't a religion issue. That was a him issue.
Yeah, but he threw religion into it.
I think he did that later to make him look like more of a badass or whatever the fuck. I think he just did that to scare people more.
Pashtun,
I don't think he really believed any of that.
Pashtuns kind of have a culture of what's called bachabazi, which means boy play. Fucking women, girls, that's halal. That's haram. You know what I mean? You're not supposed to have that. Okay, that's sinful. They're dirty. Okay, boys. Little boys, no, that's halal. That you can do that. Now, any other Muslim was gonna go, what the fuck are you talking about? But it's because that culture existed in Afghanistan before Islam, so it's pre-Islamic. And yeah, they fuck little boys. Hell yeah, they do. But that was the same thing in fucking ancient Greece.
Yeah, I was gonna say the ancient Greeks.
That was, and it's all kind of in
it's
that
the same kind of mindset.
It's that same mindset.
That the ancient
same
Greeks
thing. It was just a world of fucking.
Because they thought women were kind of gross and unclean.
Dirty and unclean, yeah.
So it's just kind of like little boys were purer for whatever reason.
Yeah, and that was you could do
by
that.
their logic.
Right. Yeah.
So logic.
Yeah. So what ends up happening? And that's not just Afghanistan. Some of the other, according to Saud, some of the other Islamic countries, even Saudi Arabia, there was some of that going on, and it's kind of like they had to keep it under wraps, and it was just you know what I mean. Fucking, they're uncomfortable about it because they're segregated by gender for a long time. So there's homosexual shit happening. But it was real pronounced in Afghanistan. Probably Pakistan too. But Afghanistan was pretty bad about it. And what happens is these boys grow up and they have kind of a wounded sense of masculinity because they were somebody's bitch when they were a little boy. So there's all these inner conflicts about homosexuality.
And the culture they grew up in, it's like they don't really have a way to healthily deal with that.
Right. So then they'll go out, and then in that particular case we're talking about there, he attacked the gay bar. But some of the people in there said that, no, that motherfucker was a regular. He was in here dating gays. And he was already married.
Yeah.
And sexuality is kind of an amorphous thing.
Yeah, because on that show, like, I watched a documentary, they talked to his ex-wife, and that was actually kind of interesting. She thought that he was gay and he was ashamed of it.
Probably. Or I think he was bisexual and ashamed of it.
Yeah, which, like I said, this is why it's better to just, however people feel about sexual, as long as, like I said, everyone's consenting, just be okay with it.
Yeah. In his case,
you try to suppress stuff like that, it's gonna cause all kind of problems.
I think what happened with that particular guy we're talking about, in his case, he felt it wasn't his choice. That it was something that was thrust on him when he was a little boy.
I mean, perhaps so.
And maybe he did pick up a predilection for it, but he traces it back to something that happened to him.
Right.
So therefore he starts blaming it on other people. Right. They made me gay. That's the fucking that was his thing. So he goes to attack the gay people because they made him gay.
Right.
That's what I think it was.
It might I kind of feel like that's probably what his motivation was too.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, we did a show about the pulse shooting, which, like I said, happened in our area. We were out that night. We were downtown that night.
We were only a couple miles from that shooting when it happened.
Only a couple blocks away.
Yeah.
From where that shooting happened. Actually, on the night that it happened, we just didn't find out about it until the next day. But fucked up. So I always kind of get like, I think we did the pulse show. I kind of got emotional about it because it was like, it was right there. Like, we were out that night.
Yeah.
Like, not at that club.
We had been to that club.
We've been there before.
We'd been there before for another event, for a dubstep event. Remember? Mini-Me fucking invited us there.
That's right. That was a long time ago.
To go to a dubstep event. It was dead. We left.
Yeah.
That was Pulse, wasn't it?
I don't remember if it was Pulse or not.
Or was it just near there?
There's so many clubs around here.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was that one, and they changed their names all the time.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember if that was... It looked the same.
I think that was that same club.
It looked the same.
It might have not... I don't know if it was named Pulse at the time we went, though.
Because we've been to other gay bars around here. Yeah. And I don't remember... But like I said, we were there that night, like, only a couple blocks from where that happened.
Yeah. Best gay club is fucking Southern Nights.
Is that even still there?
Yeah, it's still there. It's still there.
That place, it looks like a dump from the outside, but it's
a paradise inside.
Oh my god, it's beautiful.
We were going there for a goth night.
It looks like nothing.
We were going there for a goth night. that our friend was
like a fetish. It was a goth, like a goth slash fetish.
Yeah. And but no, that place was fucking awesome. You never knew who was gonna be there, man. There's fucking porn stars there. Fucking just all kinds of fucking cool people would show up. You never really knew. Just because it's fucking normally a gay club doesn't mean straight people can't go to it. Because they have other events in those clubs.
Well, straight girls go to gay bars all the time. Because it's safe.
It's where a lot of the women are.
Because a bunch of, like, stupid straight dudes aren't there.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about the fucking normies.
Like, groping you and shit.
They're trying. They groped her. He beat that motherfucker senseless.
Not
he
at the
didn't know
gay
what
bar.
happened.
At a straight club.
Yeah. That was at a straight bar. Yeah. We go to them all. If it's a cool place, we'll go.
Yeah, I don't give a crap.
Yeah.
You know. But like I said.
You want another drink?
Yeah, why not?
Want a half or full?
What is it? It's only 9:30. Okay. Holy crap, is it really that early? Holy shit.
Okay.
Holy shit. It's really early. Feels like we've been doing this show for like hours and hours, but I guess not. I mean, it's hours. It's 2 hours, but you know what I mean. So, let's see. Where was I? Okay. So, the British colonial authorities became aware of the Thuggee problem in the early 19th century. Like right around 1807, 1808, right around there. And decided they were going to do something about it. So what they started doing at first, and I don't know initially if they knew how long this had been going on, but I guess it was enough of a problem that they noticed it, and it was interfering with their interests, their commercial interests, particularly those of the East India Company. So they're like, okay, well, we have to do something about this. So what they would do at first is they would like capture some of the thugs, as they called them, and kind of, they would write the stuff up, because there are records of it from like newsletters and stuff like that from the early 19th century, where they were talking about capturing them and like the dudes like telling stories and stuff. Thank you very much. Papa77 gave a super chat. The only info I know about the Thuggee is from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I kind of feel like everybody... Yeah, I said that at the beginning. I said I kind of feel like everybody... That's where I first heard about it. And it's just kind of like... I was like, wow, is that a real thing? And then I kind of wanted to do a show about it for a long time. And every now and then, like, I'd put it in the poll and it never won. And then finally it won this time, like, by an overwhelming amount. I don't know why everybody suddenly wanted to see that. But it's just kind of like... But as with most things, it's a lot more interesting. Like the Indiana Jones movie, it kind of went like off more of the folklore, but it's not as out there as... I mean, it's not completely fictional. Like, whoever wrote that, like, knew at least the folklore about it. You know what I mean? About the Kali worship and all the kind of stuff they did. Although I don't remember, I haven't seen that movie in a while, but, like, obviously... they kind of ramped it up some for the movie, because as far as I know, the real Thuggee did not tear out people's hearts or have like a whole underground shrine, like where they were sacrificing people to Kali or like throwing them in fire pits or anything like that. No, they mostly just strangled people and stole other shit is what they did. So, they were just bandits, essentially, is what they were. But in the movie, that was kind of cool. Although I will say, and I think we've mentioned this before, when I was growing up, Temple of Doom was, I thought, the best Indiana Jones movie. But we watched it again recently, like I watched it again as an adult, and I don't like it as much.
It's kind of annoying.
The first one's better. The first one is...
much better.
The first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark, is perfect. It's kind of like Back to the Future. And I would not change a single thing. Just leave it exactly the way it is. It's perfect the way it is. Temple of Doom is good. I like the horror element. I like how scary it was. I like that. I do not like Steven Spielberg's wife in it.
Screaming her ass off.
Screaming all this shit. Just could... Because, look, Raiders of the Lost Ark had that chick in it that was like...
Miriam.
That had Miriam in it, and she was so fucking cool.
Yeah.
She could drink like dudes under the table. She was badass.
Yeah.
I don't want some screaming like super femmy. Like, that's lame. Don't do that.
Well,
Come on.
You could do that. It's just that there was too many screaming episodes in the movie.
Oh my god, I'm so girly.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
bugs.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
this. It's that. I'm just like, oh my god, stop.
They could have made her like that, but then not done it so
I
much.
can't touch an elephant.
Yeah.
You know,
it was
it's
just too much. It just got kind of lame.
Yeah, it's really annoying.
And then they put a Kenny in the show, and a Kenny is a little Oriental boy.
Although he didn't annoy me as much as she did.
Yeah. Short round.
I call my cat Short Round sometimes. I call Pookie Short Round.
Now, what was I gonna say? Last Crusade. Last Crusade was better. I liked the Last Crusade was a little bit better.
I like that more
better.
now that I'm older than I did at the time.
The other ones, I only saw the one about the fucking Shia LaBeouf in it. It was okay.
The Crystal
not
Skull,
real.
Crystal Skull one.
Yeah, not great.
That was kind of stupid. As
not
fuck.
great, but
it wasn't as bad as I remember because the first time I saw it, I was on an airplane.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, wow, this sucks out loud. Yeah. But I saw it again later. I'm like, well, it still sucks, but it's not as bad as I thought the first time I saw it. But still.
Then there was one that came out after that and never saw it. I was like, fuck that.
No, I didn't bother with that one.
Fuck that. And here's the thing.
And it might be all right. It might be all right. But
I heard it's more. I heard it's fuck that basically. What they should have done from Crystal Skull, if you're gonna go that route, I wouldn't have gone the fucking alien route. I would have done something else. But that'd have been a good time to bring back Short Round.
Yeah.
Because Short Round would have been grown by then.
Yeah, he's grown now.
Yeah.
Because he's been in other movies.
Yeah.
That actor.
To bring back Short Round, Short Round would be an adult.
Instead of Shia LaBeouf. However the fuck he pronounces it.
Yeah, that was kind of lame. Fuck Shia LaBeouf. Bring back Short Round. Yeah.
Bring back Short Round. But yeah, it's like, and I'm not usually a big advocate of like kid actors in movies because like a kid shows up, I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, here we go. Yeah. But he didn't annoy me. He wasn't bad. Like I said,
for a child role in the movie, he was. But
she annoyed me a lot more than.
I'm watching it though. I'm watching it as a teenager, and I'm going like, man, they got a kid in it now. They're really trying to fucking make it for children.
Yeah.
But they did have some fucking pretty gross stuff in there. You know, it's kind
of. Well, that's what I liked it. It's like a horror movie.
It's like a weird
which
mixture.
I was super into.
It was
like,
a weird mixture.
Tearing people's hearts out, I'm in.
It was another era I'm watching, and it was kind of reminding me of the movies I grew up with the fucking British Sinbad movies.
Yeah, like that.
Going like, the Sinbad, the Eye of the Tiger, Sinbad, and fucking that shit was working really good. Those were the original Star Wars for me. Those came out before Star Wars. I fucking loved those. The Brits could make fucking movies. They could make movies. They're better than American movies when it came to fantasy. And the first ones I saw was fucking Sinbad.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater when I was little.
Sinbad, Seven Voyages of Sinbad.
Eye of the Tiger I saw in the theater.
Eye of the Tiger, yeah. Eye of the Tiger was good with the Minotaur.
I don't remember what year that
Minotaur.
was, but I remember seeing that in the theater. I must have been a little kid.
Well, they were taking me to places that you could only dream of. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you're like, wow, look at this shit. And then a couple years later, Conan came out. Yeah. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was super into that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Philman and Asfarachi says Short Round won an Oscar. Yeah, he did like a couple of, like I said, he's still acting. Wasn't he in was he in Everything Everywhere All at Once, or was that another movie that I was thinking of? He was in something recently that he won like an Oscar for. Yeah, CB said Short Round, the actor, did The Goonies after Temple. Yeah, he was in The Goonies.
Yeah,
also.
That's right.
And he played a similar role. Like he was like that because he was Asian. They're like, well, you have to be like the gadget guy because that's how
technology.
That's how Asians do in the 80s.
Technology, yeah. Coming from Japan, you guys
I kind of feel
technology.
Like it's funny looking back at it now. Like we didn't think about it in the 80s because we lived it through the 80s.
Everything was
so it's like you didn't think, you didn't think about it in the 80s, but it's like now when you look back and it's like really cringy because like every single Asian character was like a nerdy tech person, which is like, oh my god, and it's like it's so funny.
No, not a very sexy character.
No. Well, yeah. Look at 16 Candles with like Long Duck Dong.
Yeah.
And he was just like basically a joke.
Yeah, nerd.
Like through the whole, he did get a happy ending and everything, but it's just kind of like he was just kind of the butt of the joke like the whole movie. And it's like nobody thought about it at the time, but now when you watch it, you're like, holy fucking shit, it's bad. That's bad. But
it was reality of the day.
We didn't think about it at the time, which probably we should have. But
that was the reality of the day. We thought that was real.
We didn't. We're just like, oh my god, that's hilarious. But, you know, probably not hilarious. Like, all the Asians watching are like, what the fuck?
It was an exaggeration. It was based on shit, but it was an exaggeration.
Yeah, it was a huge exaggeration. Yeah. But it's just, like, funny how every Asian character had to be. And, like, in The Goonies, and I love The Goonies. That's a great movie. But, yeah, the Asian kid had to be the one that was, like, making gadgets all the time.
Yeah, and if she was an Asian female, then she was like a hidden dragon lady. Kind of cute, sexy, exotic. They were always doing that.
Yeah.
Not the men, though. Oh, hell no.
Yeah, it was like a whole different thing. Like I said, everybody had a stereotype about them. And it's just kind of like...
Yeah.
It's easy to see now, but at the time, like, you didn't think about it. Because, like I said, you know, we're white as fuck. We didn't, like... It didn't occur to us.
They do the same thing to us, though.
They
do the same kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm sure they do.
There's all kinds of...
But
there are Caucasian stereotypes.
But the thing about it is that their entertainment is not as world spanning as ours is. Yeah. So I guess it doesn't really have the same impact as ours does.
Well, it was only the English speaking world pretty much, and some of the Spanish speaking world, Central South America.
True. True. But yeah. But so I'm just saying that the Temple of Doom movie, as problematic as fucking Kate Capshaw's character was, I just remember her name.
She's annoying, yeah.
Yeah, I don't like the damsel in distress stereotype. It just pisses me off. And she was like that to like 11.
Yeah.
And
even though she got through it, it's just that she was a
like,
whiner.
She
was the problem was she was a whiner.
And I don't like this whiny ass.
Yeah, like, it became annoying.
Like I said.
Yeah.
Marion in the original movie was much better. Like, because she was kind of like an equal.
More than she could hold her own.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's like she didn't whine. She didn't. I mean, you know, she got in like some scrapes and had to be rescued and stuff.
She could drink. She drank her way to freedom.
Yeah, but it's just kind of like. But it wasn't like. She wasn't like simpy or unrealistic or you know. It's like, oh, please rescue me. I can't do this. I can't touch bugs. I can't do this. It's like it was like super lame.
Well, in the third one, I think Dr. Jones marries her.
Didn't he eventually... I don't remember if it was the third one or the fourth one.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was the fourth one that they met up again.
Yeah.
Because wasn't she Shia LaBeouf's dad? Or mom?
Something like...
Mom?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, and then she's like, oh, by the way, this is your son. Wasn't that the whole... Yeah. I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
Yeah.
So please remind me if you've seen it more recently.
I don't know if I want to see the fourth one again. But yeah.
Yeah, I saw it 2 times, and it's like... Yeah. It got a little bit better the second time, but not much better. So, but I thought that I remembered that Shia LaBeouf's character was his actual son.
Yeah.
That she had birthed and didn't tell him about.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think so.
So I don't think she came back until.
But at the end of the third one, they get married. If I remember correctly.
I thought it was the fourth one though, because I didn't think she came back in the third
first,
one.
And they got married first, and they had the kid. But I think they got divorced or something. I don't remember.
I don't remember.
It's been a long time. I thought it Last Crusade.
Yeah, that was the fourth one. Because she wasn't in the third one.
She wasn't in the third one?
No.
Okay,
she wasn't in the third one.
I'm getting confused.
Okay, I thought it was crazy.
I'm getting confused.
Because you're like saying it's like, I'm pretty sure she was not in the third one.
It's the fourth one then.
Because the fourth one, it was like a big deal that she came back.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, there she is again. And he's like, oh, where have you been all this time? It's like, hey, I had your kid. Now he's a grown-ass person. And he's annoying as shit.
From that time we were on the ship.
Yeah.
You know, I was kissing your fucking elbow.
Like, okay. Yeah, they're saying fourth one. Yes, he was Indy's son. That's what I thought.
Fourth one.
I've seen that movie a couple times.
Fuck all y'all.
Wait, you're just mad? You're just mad because I was right?
I'm not mad because I'm wrong. Okay.
You're wrong, though.
Yeah, okay. It's the fourth one then. I've seen them. I just don't remember. I get them confused.
Yeah, because I was like, the third one was mostly about him and his dad, Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Like, she was not in the third one.
Him and his dad fucking the same German girl.
Yeah, that was weird. That was a little weird.
I thought that was cool, though.
You thought it was, of course.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. Well, she was an intelligence agent, so of course she's going to be throwing out the pussy. Now, this is... Remember? She was a German.
Wait, okay, now, did they know about it?
They didn't know that later on.
Until after, okay.
He found out.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Indy found out that his dad was hitting before he got it.
And then he was like, ew.
Yeah. Well, that's how she got all her information.
Well, I know that. I'm just saying, like, from their perspective, that'd be a little weird to, like, find out that it's like you hit some chick and it's like, by the way, I fucked your dad.
Yeah.
I think I'd be a little weird.
And he finds out later.
I'm not a dude, but I think I'd be weirded out by that. I'm just saying.
And his dad was like, "Oh, you fucked that too, huh? Okay, yeah."
And were they like,
it's cool,
all right,
yeah. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, you want to compare notes? Or yeah. That's a little weird. Dudes are weird. All right, so I'm just saying. So yeah, where was I? I probably have to pee, so it's like talk a little bit more around.
All right, let's see. Let me check it with it. She's walking away. You all got to understand the booty action happening. Yeah, she's shaking it. She's shaking it. She's shaking it.
Just because you said it.
She's working out. She's working out so much. She's on gear. And I got a new machine coming. I got the hip abduction machine coming, where you it's weighted when you spread your legs open like that. You know, we want these women to spread their legs like that. But what it does is she's doing I got the squat machine. I've been working it too, squat machine. And I'm getting a leg abduction machine. It'll be here in a couple of days. And I ordered another 100 pounds of weight. And we haven't made a video in a long time. But when she's ready, maybe like a couple more months, we're going to make a video. I can't keep my hands off of her. She walks by like that. And she's in these little tight bell bottoms and everything. She's these bell bottoms with tight. I took her to the club last week. With our friend Stacy. And Stacy's like, wow, look at them legs. She was wearing a real low cut, real low cut black dress, the V cut with the slits that go all the way up the side. They almost go up to the waist. All right. She was wearing. Oh, here she comes. Here she comes.
Where are you staying?
Talking about that dress you were wearing last week. Stacy saw that. And she goes, woo! Look at the legs on that. Look at the legs on that. Come here. What? Come here. Y'all. Look at that shit.
Okay. Don't let that go on camera.
No, it looks good on camera. I'm talking about. Wait till the show.
I don't know.
She's gonna get that shelf. Get that shelf going.
Yeah, the boob shelf.
Yeah.
Okay. Boob shelf, butt shelf, whatever.
Yeah, so we gotta get back to
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Papa
that's
said
right.
that.
Lawrence said glutes popping. Glutes popping.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we got the squat machine.
Yeah.
And we just ordered the other machine today.
Mm-hmm.
What do they call it?
It's a leg abduction machine.
The abduction machine.
Yeah.
Wait, abduction? Like you're kidnapping somebody?
Abduction, yeah. Somehow.
They're going to kidnap my legs, this machine.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah. All right, so where was I? Let's see. Okay, so the British found out about this Thuggee thing in the early 19th century and decided they were going to get to the bottom of this, as they do. So initially they captured a few of them, and there are reports of them capturing them in the stories they were telling in some of their early, they had newsletters, and they had a whole thing called, it was a journal, and they called it the Asiatic Researches of the Asiatic Society, which sounds a little redundant. But yeah, and they would talk about it in there. And so because of that, I kind of feel like public sentiment, or at least the sentiment among the the British that were living there, were kind of like, yeah, we need to eradicate this scourge or whatever. So one of the dudes that kind of stepped up to the plate, as it were, was a dude named William Henry Sleeman. And I kind of feel like if you research Thuggee cults, this is a name that comes up a lot, because this is a dude that was, he was the chief captain of the Governor General of India, who was Lord William Bentnick, something like that. So this was his guy, his right-hand man. And this guy decided that he was going to, and he actually went about it in a pretty modern, tactical kind of way, because he's like, look, if we're going to get rid of this problem, what we need to do is, if we capture one or more of them, we need to be able to flip them and get them to inform on the other ones, so we can find out what they're up to. So he was doing kind of like modern police work, I guess, in a way. Because they found it hard to identify them, because the thing about it was that a lot of them, obviously, because they were in criminal gangs, would not use their own names, or they would use all the same family name, or they would use names having to do with their professions. So you couldn't really track them. And obviously this is, the 19th century. So it's like you can't really look them up online or anything like that. So he decided, the kind of key to what we need to do is whenever we capture one of these people, we need to get as much information out of him as possible. So he ended up capturing this one guy whose name, and I'm sure I'm butchering this, was Farangea. And they actually talked him into giving up a lot of information. Now, the story that he told actually ended up turning into, being fictionalized in a very, very popular novel that came out in 1839, which is called Confessions of a Thug. So, I'm sure that's online for free somewhere. Well, it's in the public domain, so I'm just saying. You can go to, Project Gutenberg or something, so maybe they have it. So, according to reports by Sleeman, he says that this cult member brought him to a mass grave that had 100 bodies in it, and he told him how they had killed all the people and who it was that had killed all of them, the names of all the people that had committed the murders. So apparently, reportedly, they did look into these claims and confirmed them. And so after this point, Sleeman started this, kind of crusade, I guess, if you want to call it that, to kind of eradicate this scourge. And that's how he was going to do it. He's like, we're going to capture them and we're going to turn them state's evidence, or king's evidence, as they would call it back in the day. And we're going to get them to inform on the other ones. That's how we're going to do this. So he gets made superintendent of the Thuggee, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this right, but dacoity department. That was in 1835. Dacoity is apparently a word, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. That was organized banditry was what that word meant. So he got put in charge of that department. So that was his job now, was just to sort all of this shit out. And like I said, if you do any kind of research on Thuggee, this dude's name will come up because he was the British colonial official that was the most involved in trying to eradicate this, eradicate the Thuggee. So the thing about it, dacoity, if that's how you pronounce it, actually that was different from what the Thuggees did, because that was kind of more, they tended not to murder people. It was just kind of stealing, and they were kind of more upfront about what they weren't sneaky about it, the Thuggee were, where they were hey, we're your friends, oh, by the way, and then they'd strangle you and take all your shit. Whereas these other ones were kind of more hey, we're just gonna take our shit, bye, you know what I mean? They didn't really, it wasn't as secretive, you know what I mean? So it was two different things. So apparently Sleeman had this whole thing where he developed this whole intelligence network. And it kind of, in a way, was kind of ahead of its time, I feel in the way that he was using one against the other and trying to, and I guess, I'm not saying nobody had ever thought of that, but it just seemed it was kind of one of the first times, in recorded history that this was kind of recorded as a big thing that they were doing, where they were just kind of we're capturing people and returning people's state's evidence, and we're trying to capture other ones.
Like I said in the early part of the show, there are not very many British people, okay, when you compare them to the population of the world. One thing about the fucking British, about the British in terms of a military force, is they're really good at intel and deception and commando raids.
Well, that's kind of what they were doing here.
Their fucking trademark was fucking divide and conquer. They were big into that, and they could use fucking propaganda to do it, media, psychological warfare. Out of that, during the Second World War came Ian Fleming, bringing you all the fucking 007 James Bond shit, okay? Mm-hmm. The United States CIA was heavily influenced by the British. And fucking all of our special operations came from the British Commandos is what we modeled a lot of that after, which ended up kind of being Delta Force, Special Forces, that kind of stuff. Army Rangers. So the British made up for their lack of numbers through guile and intelligence and deception. And I think a lot of it they learned in India.
And good organization.
And mind games.
Sure.
It all boils down to mind games. And then the Americans kind of picked up off of them too.
Well, yeah, a lot of our culture comes from the UK.
Yeah, heavily influenced.
I know a lot of Americans are kind of like salty about that still, but it's true.
Yeah.
Sorry, but it's true.
Well, the thing is that people think of the United States as something separate from Europe. It isn't really.
No.
What it is that the European civilization got so big that it spilled out into another continent.
Yeah.
And
we're like the refuse.
Right. And it was England, Spain, and France. Heavy in Spain. Most of the American continent is a product of Spain, the Spanish Empire, Central and South America.
And the Midwest is a lot of like Scandinavia. Also. Like a lot of Scandinavian in the Midwest.
Yep. But
if you go there, you will see.
Your basic American in the South and Northeast is like something out of the UK. Northern parts of Britain, fucking Ireland, Wales, Scotland. All the poor people.
We're like the Americans are like the offshoot, like the people that nobody else wanted.
Yeah, a lot of them were driven out.
We all ended up here for various reasons.
A lot of people were driven out, kind of like the way in Australia.
No one wanted to be around us.
Yeah, we had penal colonies.
Yeah, I mean that's why kind of the U.S. and Australia culturally are kind of similar.
More similar, right? Yeah.
Because Australia had kind of the same thing. They also had an indigenous population that was largely driven out or exterminated. And then, the English like sent a lot of their criminals and undesirables there, quote unquote. And then a culture kind of sprang out of that.
The Aborigine and the Native Americans, though, were not the same. They were
no, I'm just saying
close.
It was a similar situation.
The thing is with America, there's a big Indian genocide shit that didn't really happen. What happened was that white people married a lot of Indians. We more interbred.
Well, and a lot of them were dead by the time.
Yeah, a lot of them got killed by a plague.
By disease.
By a plague that happened.
That the Europeans brought.
Yeah. Well,
that we didn't have any immunity.
Spain showed up and smallpox.
With their cooties.
Cooties. That got a lot of them. But then...
Because we didn't have any immunity.
But as far as the American Indians, most of the time, during the time of the American Indians, there were good relations. It was... this French and Indian Wars was Americans and their Indian allies fighting the French and their Indian allies over the fucking beaver trade. It was fucking super complicated, and it was
like I said,
it was like something out of ancient European history between the fucking Celts and the Saxons and all that. It was like that.
You could do a whole fucking class, and I kind of wish they would. Yeah. I wish they would do an because American history class, I will say, and I don't know if it's still like this or not. But American history class, when I was a kid, started from when the British showed up. Yeah. There was nothing about who was here before, which is kind of fucked up. Well, so I kind of feel like, well, yeah, that's all it was. So I kind of feel like you could do a whole other class on all of the tribes and the relations between the tribes that were here before the British even arrived.
The Comanches and the Apaches were in a war that lasted about 200 years.
That's what I'm saying.
There was all kinds
and I kind of feel like they don't even teach that here. Or, I mean, they didn't when I was a kid, which is, like, fucked up.
And people have a hard time understanding the vastness of the Lakota and how powerful they were. And how most of the American army were Lakota braves or warriors throughout the 1800s. Because... the Lakota joined the Union, basically. And their culture was a warrior culture. They all joined the U.S. cavalry.
Yeah.
So if you
because, like I said, there were lots and lots of different tribes, like different nations.
Yeah.
They were all different, and they all had different allegiances.
When I was in the Army, man, we had disproportionate representation from Native Americans. And it was because if you're from a Native American nation... your whole purpose as a man is to either be a hunter or a warrior. And you can't be a warrior now because there's fences and cars and shit like that, and you're in a peaceful America. So they join the Army. You know, lots of Native Americans in there. So it's just because they have a macho culture, you know. And those motherfuckers will wave an American flag and do all kinds of shit. It's not like people think, you know. It's like they're like any other American, but they just happen to be here before us. But they marry white people. They marry white people, you know.
Yeah.
That's what happened to most of the Indians is that they married people. They married white people.
Yeah, because after a time, you're just kind of like everyone just became kind of.
When white man first showed up, there were no white women here. They all married Indian women. Most of the New England colonies were biracial, Salem, all that witch trial shit. Most of the people were Native American in Salem at that time, or at least half Native American. And all throughout the 17 and 1800s, people fucking have a hard time coming. Hollywood has a hard time coming to grips is that white women ran off with Indians because it was actually a better lifestyle for them.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, Native American Indians were fucking. We call them Indians, they're not really. Native Americans were an attractive fucking alternative to the European lifestyle. That was
I
here.
could see that. I totally. If I had been around in that,
a woman could get more status, and it was.
If I was around in that day, I totally would have run off.
And it was better living. It was cleaner living. They were traveling and camping all the time, and women had more status in most of the Native American tribes, and it was a more healthy lifestyle. Fucking Victorian era, especially 1800s.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah, nasty. They were shitting in chamber pots and living in fucking.
Well, and like I said, status of women not super high.
Yeah, not high.
I mean, it hasn't been high ever, but I just kind of feel like comparatively, had I been around at that time, I totally would have run off.
Well, the U.S. Army would say, yeah, we attacked this one tribe and we found these white women captives that were with them. We woke up the next morning, they were gone. Well, they fucking ran back.
Bitch, we weren't captives.
Yeah, they weren't captives. They fucking.
We left of our own accord.
Yeah.
It's better over there.
Yeah.
So we left. But yeah, I totally would have too. Because like I said, if I'd stayed with the fucking Victorian motherfuckers, they would have like burned me at the stake, I'm sure, at some point. That's why I don't ever want to go back in time. Because I'd be the first one. Like, they'd burn as a witch, I'm sure. But yeah, so he was using like a tactic, like I said, I'm sure they've done this in the past, but this was kind of like, I don't know, I kind of feel like it was one of the first times that it was used as like a kind of a very systematic thing where he was just like capturing people, using them as informants, and they didn't torture them or nothing. Well, at least that's what they said, which I'm not sure I entirely believe, but they would basically say, hey, we're not going to do anything bad to you. You're safe, but you have to tell us XYZ, which, like I said, is what cops do nowadays. So he was doing that, and that's how he got like a lot of the scuttlebutt on what the Thuggee were doing. Now, interestingly, when they captured a lot of the quote-unquote thugs, they did give them, I will say it's like an ersatz court trial. But the thing about it was that they kind of like let them go in front of a judge, but they didn't really let them have any legal representation, which even at the time, as far as I'm aware, was usually what would happen. You know what I mean? So it's like this. So I don't know. So it was kind of like you were getting a court trial, but not really. Like you didn't really have a lawyer or anything like that, like to speak on your behalf. You were just kind of like put in front of a judge. But the thing about it, from all reports, and like I said, keep in mind that this is from British colonial sources, so they might be trying to make themselves look better in hindsight. I'm not entirely sure. But they're saying it's like, look, we tried to give them like a fair shake. You know, even though like sometimes, you know, if it was a case of mistaken identity or, you know, this person wasn't really involved, like we would let them go. Like they weren't super bloodthirsty about it. They did try to give them a fair trial. But like I said, keep in mind that this is coming from British colonialist sources, so they could be trying to make themselves look better. I'm not entirely sure. And the thing about it, too, was that, remember I mentioned the river thugs earlier that operated along the Ganges. They were actually a lot harder to catch because, I mean, obviously because of the way they went about shit, you couldn't really find the bodies and all this other kind of shit. But they did eventually get caught also in like the mid 1800s. Now, as I said, I kind of feel like contemporary, like Swords is contemporary with the Thuggee. Like even going back to the 1300s with the first mention of them, no one really emphasized the Kali worship thing. I feel like, I'm not a historian, just what I got from my, perusal of the sources was that I feel like that was a later British colonialist take on it. In the same way that Satanic Panic kind of thing was. Like, I kind of feel like they were trying to make it seem like...
About what year
it was a more organized and more cult-like organization than it probably was in real life.
What year, what era we're talking about when they start talking about...
We're talking about mid to late 19th century.
So 1850.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Well, another alternative thing that you could look at, though, is that by that time it had morphed into that.
That could be also.
Might be another...
I mean, that could be also. And the thing about it was that they were getting most of their information about Thuggee from captured people. So it's like they could be making a bunch of shit up. They could be telling them stuff to freak them out. They could be like, there's lots of things that could be going on.
It was probably something just real amorphous and fucking general.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
It might have been a good analogy would have been the Mexican cartels in Santa Muerte.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, and I was thinking that I think they were trying to maybe make it seem like it was a more organized. Because, like I said, roving bands of bandits. That's not.
It's not real sexy.
Yeah, I mean that's not crazy. That's been going on like forever. You know what I mean? That's just a thing that happens. So it's like, I think they were trying to make it seem more like an organized, scarier, bigger...
Okay, I got it.
Like, edifice.
I got
You know what I'm saying? And
you're talking about 1850s. This is before movies.
Well, yeah, way before.
In this era, everything's books and written.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to tell this story, Hollywood style, you're going to emphasize this fucking...
Yeah, you got to zhuzh it up. Even back then they did that.
So it's going to be probably something along the lines of like, yeah, you got Mexican cartels and narco warriors. They're doing all this horrible shit to people. And they worship fucking Santa Muerte. And then you start making that kind of more central to it.
Yeah, that's like the fulcrum of your...
Yeah, right. So your emphasis, they're putting a different emphasis. Or more emphasis on
like
the
it's
religion.
not necessarily untrue.
It's correct.
They're just putting the emphasis on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
To make it
They're emphasizing the supernatural and the religious.
Right. They're making it seem scarier.
You could do that. I'm like, if I was going to make an Indiana Jones movie about Mexico in the modern day with the narco fucking armies, it would look like Temple of Doom. Yeah. But they'd have Santa Muerte there instead of Kali and all kinds. Yeah. It'd be like that. That's probably what they did.
Well, like I said, it just seems like you said, even back in the day before there was movies, they still had books and newspapers and shit like that.
That was the medium.
And people still had to buy those.
Right.
So they're still going to make a story seem like way more sexier and salacious than it probably was in real life. Yeah. So it's just kind of like, a bunch of like a roving gangs of highwaymen, not super sexy.
Not all that sexy.
So it's just kind of like, but... If these are an organized group of Kali worshippers...
You put the emphasis different.
And put the emphasis on that. That sounds a lot more like, like people get all kind of...
We're not saying that they didn't fucking revere Kali.
Yeah, I'm not saying that.
They probably did.
I'm just saying...
It probably was ancillary. That's probably more on the side.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
What they were doing.
I'm saying I kind of feel like it was kind of more like a Satanic Panic thing, where it's just kind of like, in the 70s and 80s... Like, you had some serial killers that, like, every now and then, one of them will do, like, some satanic shit. Like, ooh, like, Richard Ramirez is like, oh, look, I'm going to put I'm going to draw a fucking pentagram in my hand. Or, ooh, I'm a Satanist or whatever. And they try to blow it up into this organized, bigger... Because that's, like, scarier, right? If somebody's like... It's not scary. I mean, it's still scary. But it's not scary enough.
And then
to just be one random ass person doing crazy ass shit.
Yeah.
If they're linked to a larger organized group, that's much scarier.
It's more of a
that's why people love conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
That's why they love that kind of shit, because it's like it's much scarier to think that it's like there's some higher up and it's like this organized, cult kind of thing.
It's not really only that. It's that you're branding it.
Yeah.
It's more like you're
that too,
because this is a marketing thing. You're branding it as a concept. Is what and they probably did revere Kali. But the thing is they're going to put that fucking... Because you're talking about a Christian audience, they're going to make the Kali thing the biggest part of it.
Yeah, because it's exotic and it's different. And Kali is, to Westerners...
The devil.
That's like scary to them.
Yeah, yeah. So that sounds a lot better if you do it that way. It's probably just a bunch of criminals. Yeah, they had Kali shit on the side, but that wasn't their main deal.
Their main deal was just like
getting money,
stealing shit,
stealing shit,
and just like killing people to eliminate witnesses, just from a pragmatism point of view, as you would do. Yeah. So it's just kind of like
probably religiously sanctifying it. Well, Kali said so. That's the same thing. Narco armies, fucking Santa Muerte. You know what I mean? Fucking the devil.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think that's a good analogy because I think that's pretty much exactly
probably what it is.
Like, I don't think they think about it like narco terrorists, for example. I don't think they think about it on a day-to-day basis. No. They're like, hey, this dude fucked us over in a deal, so we're just gonna like cut the skin of his face off and
just like back in the heavy metal days. You go, yeah, with the fucking Satan fucking devil horns. That's right, bitches, we fucked him up.
Yeah.
And then they'll give some offerings. You know, they do take some of that shit seriously. You know what I mean? They fucking... I heard.
But it's not their reason for doing it.
I don't think it's their reason for doing it. No.
That's what I'm saying.
I think it's more their justification.
Right. And I think
they're sanctifying what they're doing.
And I think that's exactly what's going on here. If there was any kind of Kali worship, quote unquote, going on, I think it was after the fact.
Yeah.
I don't think they were doing it for that reason. I think they were just doing it and then just be like, oh yeah, Kali said it was okay. So
well, you're going out committing crimes and you're killing people.
Right.
To make yourself feel better, you go, well, we're worshiping Kali. She says it's okay.
Yeah, it makes it feel...
We're with the devil, so we can do it.
It makes it feel like more...
you're doing something.
Like important.
Like important. And that evil sanctifies and justifies what you're doing.
Sure.
So that's what they're doing. And I don't doubt it. Now here, I don't doubt that Kali was a thing, but the main point was to steal. That's what it was. And it didn't have anything to do with satisfying Kali or anything.
Yeah, because I don't think...
hold on, I want to say something. And then it got blown out of proportion because you got the British involved.
Yeah.
And the British that are dealing with it are British commissioned officers. Okay? Well, shit, it helps you fucking justify your existence and your job, and it magnifies your fucking clout as a military officer.
Yeah.
To say, I fought the Thuggees.
Yeah, exactly.
These motherfuckers.
With this big organized group of
So now...
a cult-like...
Yeah, so now all of a sudden you're more heroic.
Edifice, right.
Now. You're more heroic.
You're
helping to defend Christendom.
Yeah.
So
it makes it bigger than...
Makes it bigger.
Yeah.
Makes it bigger, and it makes your reputation as a man who fought him even bigger.
Because people have a tendency to fucking do that.
Yeah.
Make themselves more important than
It's not lying. It's not lying. It's just that...
It's kind of lying.
It's just that they're...
It's kind of lying.
It's not lying. They were fighting them. And those dudes were doing that. It's just that you're adding the sizzle to the steak.
You're embellishing.
PR. It's PR.
You're embellishing.
It's PR. I don't even know if it's embellishment. They probably did fight him. It's just saying that it makes it better and bigger if it's a legendary battle, not just a regular battle.
Yeah.
And you're throwing religion into this? Church of England versus Kali? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a whole
thing. Yeah, that's what they're doing.
Which, like I said, I kind of feel like that kind of disappoints me about humans because it's just kind of like humans have to have this big, everything has to be this big epic battle.
It's an epic battle.
Between good and evil.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, it can't be just like, hey, there were these like fucking highwaymen and, you know, we caught some of them and caught some of them and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And it was just kind of like.
No, it's better.
And that's not, but no, if you couch it as it's a good versus evil battle.
Yeah.
It's Christendom versus Islam or
the Church of England versus Kali.
Hinduism. Yeah,
the Hindu Satan.
Yeah, if you couch it like that, then it's like, suddenly everybody wants to buy that newspaper.
You think of the drinks. Think of the drinks they buy you at the bar. Sure. How many brandy snifters you can drink? How many fucking of these easy women fucking paper plate chicks?
History? Is distorted because of this very issue.
All of it.
All of it.
All of it.
All of it.
All of it. Yeah. All of it.
So, because I kind of feel like if you could invent a time machine, and go back in time, and see most of the shit that was like super exalted in history or whatever, and epic and everything. If you went back, it would be like nothing. It would probably just be like that was it.
Most of the European battles only involved a couple thousand dudes.
That's what I mean.
It would look like two rock concerts fighting. And and one of them got their asses kicked. And you go, that's it? That's the battle?
And like there's a village like 2 miles away, and they're like, what?
Yeah, that's what it'd be.
They didn't even know what happened.
A huge gang fight, and that was like the Battle of Agincourt. It was just a gang fight with fucking
it's like that
bows and arrows.
It's like that happens in cities here, like now, and no one bats an eye. Like no one even cares about it.
Yeah, it's like I was saying. Somebody was saying like, we're not in the Wild West. And I said, of course we're not in the Wild West. The fucking one of the most epic gun battles of all times in the Wild West was the shootout of the OK Corral. That wouldn't even make
that was like
news. Nothing. Couple of dudes got shot.
They didn't even write about. I mean, they would, but it's like it would be like a tiny little.
Yeah, it'd be a little bitty article.
Like, hey, a couple people got shot.
We left the Wild West in the fucking dust a long time ago. Fucking America's the shit when it comes to violence. Yeah.
I mean, something has to be really egregious.
Yeah, for a team.
I mean, before, like, okay. I'm not going to say that.
Here's the thing: if you're a foreigner, we don't see that violence a lot.
No.
It's this place is big. It's a big place. Yeah.
I have never seen a murder in real life.
Yeah. I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for a lot of accidental deaths. Yeah.
Well, I've seen some accidental deaths, but I've never seen like a murder in real life.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that, like I said, it's a big place.
Yeah.
And honestly, because I write about true crime, I think I understand how shit can happen, but it's like really localized.
Yeah.
Like, a mile, 2 miles away, like nobody even knows what's going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, but on a day-to-day basis, I know that from the outside, the United States seems very scary, which some places it is. I'm not doubting that. But
you gotta look for those places.
But I'm just saying that it's like, if you come to the U.S., most places you're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
We're not seeing that data because it's a massive, massive place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places that like nobody lives or very few people live, and you can wander around there and it's fine. Like you will probably not even encounter
per capita. The most dangerous places is Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi, and they're very rural, very low population density, but they have the highest. You can check on the map. They have the highest per capita murder rate.
Yeah, places like that. Honestly,
even more than a city per capita.
Yeah, I would feel a lot safer going to New York, and I've been to New York City many times. I never ever felt unsafe in New York City ever.
And the reason why it's dangerous in those 3 states is because.
And I went to Harlem and everything. Yeah. It's like I never felt unsafe there ever.
The reason why it's dangerous there is because there's no witnesses.
Yeah.
You can get in a shootout or you can kill somebody. Nobody will see it.
I don't know if this is still the case. I think that the highest per capita crime rate, I don't know about murder rate, I think it's like St. Louis, Missouri.
It might be.
Or Cleveland,
Ohio. It's
Ohio.
probably always changing.
Or somewhere like that. It's like a Midwest
Yeah.
kind of place. It's not like a big city like you'd think it would be. It's not Chicago. It's not New York City. It's not San Francisco. It's nothing like that. It's like some Midwesty kind of city.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, so, like I said, I've been to New York City many times. I've been to Philadelphia. I've been to Baltimore. I've been to, like, lots of places like that. Never, ever felt unsafe there. Ever. Never.
The South, it's mostly death because of personal vendettas. It's somebody who knows you, and you're in a conflict with that person. Kind of more like a duel. So kind of what a lot of it's like. Sometimes both parties are armed. There's all kinds of shit. We just had a huge shootout just up the fucking street here between one family in one house attacked another family in another house.
Yeah.
You know, and fucking some people
Because
were
they
killed.
didn't they accuse them of being?
They accused the other ones of being
files?
pedos. Yeah, that they were doing shit to kids. So they had evidently fucking tried to get the cops involved. The cops didn't do anything, so they attacked and killed them.
I mean, maybe the cops didn't get involved because it wasn't true.
It may be, or they couldn't prove it.
Or they couldn't prove it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But I think 3 were killed. I think.
I thought when I first heard about that, my first thought was meth lab.
Yeah, that's not what it was.
Because there's a lot of that shit going on
fighting
here.
over fucking supposed PDF file action. So there's an element of vigilanteism happen. Where the South is Scotland, basically. It's the same Scots-Irish race for the most part, and the black people here heavily influenced by
angry people.
So everything is fucking like clan and family warfare, you know, and local shit. You did this and that.
People are snowflakes. They get very offended.
Yeah,
by,
you gonna die over that.
They get very offended by nothing.
Yeah.
And will kill you over it.
Yeah.
Which is very silly.
Well, not over nothing. Sometimes it's over shit. It's just vigilanteism.
It's about.
Oh, it's an honor.
Shit.
It's an honor-based society. You say the wrong thing, you insult somebody, in public, their honor, you might get killed.
Papa says Memphis, Tennessee has the highest crime rate.
Does it? Okay, yeah.
I was thinking it was St. Louis, but it's like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and I used to live in Tennessee when I was in the 101st Airborne Division.
My father's family are from Tennessee. Not from Memphis, but they're from Springfield.
You used to go to Memphis, and the other one fucking...
I've been there.
What was the other place that they had? Fucking... Memphis was a sleepy town. It seemed very like a sleepy city. Nashville.
But
Nashville
like I
was the other one. I liked Nashville.
Yeah, I actually kind of liked it there too. But the thing about it is that you got to watch those fucking small all-American towns because they do whole true crime series, several of them actually, about fucked up murders that happen in these. And the funny thing is that every single time, people that live there, this was like such a nice town. Nobody locked their doors. Everybody knew each other and stuff like that. I'm like, well, obviously it wasn't a nice town because like somebody murdered somebody horribly. So, you know, that shit was going on and you guys just didn't know about it, I guess.
For people in England, because we have British listeners, fucking the South and Appalachia, they've had linguists come in here and go, man, this is very Elizabethan. The way that, you know, people from England, the English fucking linguists have come here and go, very Elizabethan fucking way of speaking in Appalachia. It's like something from the 1500s.
Oh, he says St. Louis is number 2. So I wasn't too far off. I knew St. Louis was up there.
Appalachia and the South are fucking kind of like archaic spin-offs of archaic Scotland and archaic Ireland and Wales in the north of England before all of the fucking improvements had happened in the modern era in those places back in the homeland. In other words, we're kind of like an archaic spin-off of those cultures. You know. So, some people say, well, fucking Ireland isn't like that now. It's like, yeah, but we're a spin-off of something the way those places used to be.
A long time ago.
A long time ago. You're right.
With some really cheap liquor involved?
Yeah. lots of guns and no cops and a lot of land.
Yeah.
And it's
you know, probably like a significant loss of IQ points.
Yeah, there was some of that too.
So, I don't know if it was all that lead poisoning in
all
the
that
70s.
leaded gasoline.
I'm sure that did not help.
70,
So you know, we're reaping the benefits of that nowadays in a sarcastic way. But yeah, we're seeing that kind of play out. But yeah, I've noticed that like a lot of the high crime areas are, not what you would think. Like I said, I've been in New York City many times. And I've been to like areas that were like not like tourist areas. I've been to like other, and I never ever felt unsafe at all. Now I've felt unsafe in Florida many times. But going to big cities, I just never, I don't know. Most people in big cities will just like fucking leave you alone. Like people that live in big cities, they're used to just kind of like, hey, there's like lots of people around, and they have that kind of mindset where they're just kind of like, I'm doing my thing and you're doing your thing and everything's fine. But it's just kind of like, so I never really felt threatened or like people were up in my shit or nothing like that. But it's just kind of like smaller towns, not really the same. Smaller towns kind of creep me out, to be honest with you. Because you go there and it's just like, if you look a little different, you go to the gas station or something and they're like looking at you like, you got a pretty mouth. It's like, it's that kind of shit. You know what I mean? I don't like it. And like I said, I grew up in the South, so in a pretty rednecky place. I'm not a fan. Not a fan. I would much rather live in like a big, huge city because everyone's just kind of indifferent because they're used to living around like lots of different people and they don't care anymore. So they don't pay attention to people. I kind of feel like in a smaller town, they have less to do and there are less people around for them to fixate on. So they're going to fixate on anybody that looks different and they're just going to like, you know, they're going to target those people. So it's like, so I don't like it.
Fucking years back before I met Jen, fucking I was doing some horse work out in this area. Actually, I forgot. Might have been more to the north, and about 10, 15 miles on a horse farm. And I was wearing fucking. That's back when I was with Aleta still, and I was wearing New Rock shoes.
Yeah.
And they were just, what the hell? What the hell? What? They were just totally fixated on my shoes because they'd never seen shoes like that. Yeah.
I'm very uncomfortable with that kind of.
Yeah. And one of them, and like the patriarch, if that's what you want to call him, he was drunk, the head of the family.
Of course.
And he wanted to fight. And the other ones, the girls,
because,
like, stop.
Of your shoes.
Yeah, because of my shoes.
Because he didn't like the shoes.
They were
like I said, I grew up in the South, and that completely tracks.
Yeah.
This is why I don't really. I'm not really a fan.
Those people were red fucking necks.
Not a fan.
And they were super redneck. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. And I'm fucking doing work on their farm, working with horses, English equestrian horses. And it wasn't the client; it was the neighbors of the client. Yeah, that was like that. Because the families were kind of joined. You know what I mean?
I'm glad I work at home.
Yeah,
it's just that's all I'm gonna say.
It's just stupidity. You know,
right, but stupidity can still get you killed.
Get you. Just like, what kind of shoes are those? Those are New Rocks. Where are they from? So those are from Spain. So you got them Spanish shoes, you know.
Yeah. You're an immigrant.
Yeah, I got Spanish shoes.
Blam.
What the hell?
That's exactly what, and that's not really. It's not an
exaggeration.
It's not far off.
It's not exaggeration. You got to be careful.
This is why I'm glad I work at home.
Yeah, and I'm from Mississippi. Okay, fucking.
I'm from stupid ass Florida.
So you know what I mean. My fucking redneck card was solid, but he just couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle my shoes.
They have very, very narrow bandwidth.
Yeah. I was just laughing.
And I have a hard time.
Yeah.
Well, like I said,
they kind of look like that. They got fucking big soles on.
Which is not weird. Like, I wouldn't even notice that or comment on it.
Yeah, nobody else would notice it. It's just that they had never seen them.
In a normal place, no one would even notice it. Or if they did, they would just be like, oh, okay, shoes, whatever. Yeah, and it's like shoes. They would go about their own lives.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter.
It was a brand of shoes that he had never seen.
But among people who have no lives and their whole entire life is fucking with other people.
Yeah. The girls liked him, though. Yeah. His wife and his daughters and shit like that.
That might have been why he was like upset about it.
Maybe. Yeah, well, he was drunk, too. You know, fucking.
Well,
look at his shoes.
I'm drunk right now.
Yeah.
But I would never, ever. Like, why the fuck do you care? Like, why do people care?
I wasn't jacked back then, though.
I don't understand.
Had I been jacked and showed up, he wouldn't have said shit.
No, I'm sure he wouldn't.
He wouldn't say shit.
Now, if it was me, I'm sure he would have said something.
Yeah, I'd go into biker bars up here jacked like that, and I'd do whatever the fuck I want. I'm like a king. I'd have the damn fucking warlock, fucking outlaw motorcycle gang there. I'm hanging out with all them, most of them ex-military and shit. You know what I mean? I can do whatever I want. You know, and they're carrying guns in a bar with cameras everywhere. It's like something out. If y'all ever see fucking Star Wars with the fucking cantina and Mos Eisley, fucking the wretched hive of scum and villainy, that's fucking where I hang out some of the times. It's up the street.
Yeah.
Fucking, and
I've been there a couple times.
Yeah, she's been there a couple times. That place is dangerous.
It's alright.
It's dangerous, but if you're of the right type, you won't have a problem.
I mean, I've gone there looking like my little gothy self.
They love that, though. They love it.
Yeah.
They love that, yeah.
I
they
never
love
felt
women.
like I was going to get shot or nothing.
No, they love women. It's just that...
I wouldn't go there at night, though. Never.
Well, there's other shit to go to. At night, it's just like a sports bar type deal, you know.
Which I hate that.
with fucking country music and blasting.
Yeah, fuck that.
So, but during the daytime, it's bikers.
Yeah, and honestly, I grew up in Daytona Beach. I do not have a problem with bikers.
No, the bikers are cool.
I'm
a biker.
They never had a problem with me.
Yeah.
And I never had a problem with them. They're a subculture. We're a subculture.
Yeah, they know what a subculture is. Yeah.
The subculture.
Yeah.
They're a little more rednecky than me, which I don't love. But it's just kind of like, but I get it.
Well.
And I've never, honestly, when I had problems, like, you know, growing up in Daytona, because we have Bike Week, Biketoberfest, like, you know, 500,000 bikers coming into town. We never had any problems with them. We had problems with the spring breakers, like the douchey, jockey,
terrible.
white college students. Like, we had problems with those dudes. But bikers, never.
Yeah, boomer bikers are listen to country and all that shit.
Yeah, which sucks.
But bikers and Gen X and lower, which is my generation, they're not listening to that. They're listening to metal.
Yeah, which is better.
A lot better, yeah. Better. Just
I'm not into the boomer thing.
Yeah.
Like about
they're going to listen to the Eagles and shit.
Which, you know, that's like my dad was into. Like, you know, I don't mind the Eagles, but, you know.
So, how much we got left on this?
A little bit.
A little bit more? Okay. All right.
So
we've had a full show, it looks like.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just, like, I got it, like, one more paragraph.
Okay, good.
And then you can talk about something else.
Almost shut it down.
Okay.
I'm going to give us something to eat.
But still, we were talking about something. I'm having a good time with that.
Okay.
All right, so I do kind of.
All right.
What do you want to get?
We'll figure something out. We'll even drive up there and get a sandwich. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll see what I have. I'll see if I have any ham left. I'm not sure if I have ham left.
I mean, we don't have any ham.
I'll go check.
I made ham for Easter, but
yeah.
So by the 1870s, the British thought that they had eradicated the Thuggee problem. But they did in 1871, whether that was true or not, they did pass a little law called the Criminal Tribes Act, or the CTA. Now, that law was later repealed in 1947 when, India got independence. But as far as anyone knows, these type of tribes do kind of still exist in India to this day. But I don't know, like I said, if they're still like organized or anything like that. Now, the Thuggee department, as I said, that Sleeman was the head of, that actually was around until 1904 when it was disbanded. And it later became what is popularly known as the CID, like that everybody knows nowadays. So, as I mentioned earlier, modern historians are not sure how much of the Thuggee lore is legit. They're not saying that they didn't exist. They're just saying that maybe some of the claims are exaggerated, such as the claims that they killed 2 million people and that they were this super organized Kali worshipping cult and they all kind of had a network where they all knew each other and blah, blah, blah. They're kind of like, yeah, maybe not. Maybe that was like an exaggeration by the British because they were trying to make themselves seem like they were, like you said, like they wanted to seem like they were fighting this bigger force. Like it makes them seem
it makes you feel better,
important.
Too.
Yeah.
It also makes you feel better when you're in combat to think that you're fighting good and evil. So
right. Yeah.
Even if it's not true, you're gonna go like, okay, yeah, I'd rather believe it like this.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, everyone's kind of a legend in their own mind.
Yeah.
So you're going to paint yourself as this kind of like holy warrior, I guess, where you're just like fighting this larger force. I'm the one person that's holding off the forces of evil, like in this, you know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, but...
Well, they're fighting crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they were.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like it was a lot more prosaic than they were... I mean, they were just roving bands of criminals, which we've had like forever.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that they were trying to paint it as some larger organized thing, I don't know. I kind of feel like that was kind of them making themselves feel more important than they were.
I think perhaps. What I think it was is it was a criminal subculture.
Sure.
Kind of like the Mexican cartels with Santa Muerte. But it wasn't but they didn't have like an overarching like a Vatican.
Right, exactly.
Where there's like a fucking, like a satanic king telling them what to do or anything like that. It was just a bunch of criminals that had something to lean on.
Yeah.
And you say, well, we're criminals, we're going to kill these people. You know what? Fucking Kali, goddammit.
Yeah.
The devil.
Because that's scary.
Yeah.
especially to white people.
Right, so they can get through what they're doing through branding.
Sure.
And then the same thing with the British. They go like, fucking, okay, we'll take that brand. Church of England versus the fucking Kali.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Indians.
We're the Peter Cushing to your Christopher.
Yeah. And then everybody comes out looking like heroes.
Sure. Like I said,
It's not a lie. It's not a lie. It's just
it's kind of a lie.
It's just PR. It's branding.
Kind of a lie.
It's branding. It's PR.
Public relations.
Public relations.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's also a way of so you can
Which
imagine.
is kind of a lie.
It also it's a way of you to imagine what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going through all this hardship, fighting all these dudes and all this fucking suffering and shit to fucking destroy Satan.
I don't know, man. Like, well, I don't know. I guess
I guarantee you they believed it.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
I guarantee you both sides believed it.
That's why I'm laughing, because it's just kind of like, I'm sure that's exactly what they were thinking.
Yeah.
I just laugh because it's like, I'm not that kind of person, and I know that things are never that cut and dried, and they're never that black and white. So it's like, it always makes me laugh when people try to paint it as that, because I'm like, I can guarantee that that's not what happened. And I'm sure it was a lot more boring than what they were portraying.
They were criminals.
Sure.
They knew about Kali. They talked about Kali. They
sure.
did shit.
They killed people.
They killed people.
They robbed people. They killed people. They did do that.
They did all do that. Yeah.
They probably killed hundreds, thousands, perhaps millions of people. I don't know if it was millions.
What we're saying is that it wasn't as epic as it looks
right.
in the fucking
That's
Hollywood.
I'm just saying that I think that the British maybe exaggerated a little bit so they could make it seem like this big epic battle, like good and evil versus, good versus evil battle, which I don't think it was necessarily, because I don't think it was as organized. Like I said, I think it was more like a Mexican cartel type of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like it was a bunch of different gangs that weren't associated with one another.
Yeah, what's Jen is trying to say is that
shit.
today, if we went to war with the Mexican cartels, which they've been declared terrorist outfits, okay? If we went to war with that today, we would just say the United States Army is fighting the Mexican cartels.
Right.
It would not be fucking portrayed as God. The forces of God are destroying the fucking forces of the devil in Mexico. Okay.
Now,
for the glory of America.
Some news sources might portray it that way.
Well, some people will choose to do that, but what it is it's just.
But that's not
the U.S. Army fighting the Mexican drug cartels. That's all it was.
Well, like I said, and I think this goes back to the same thing. It's like human minds are not good with nuance. They kind of like everything to be this versus that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't really like to think about how fucking nebulous everything is. So it's just kind of like, it's much easier to think we're the good guys, they're the bad guys, we're going to defeat. I mean, that was kind of like
okay, look, I'm going to say, this is the way I'm going to come at it, Jen. If you're fucking taking down the drug cartels, you are fighting against Santa Muerte and the drug cartels. You actually are.
I mean, you are, yeah.
I think that's a good thing.
Sure.
Okay. Fucking, those guys do a lot of bad shit.
They're bad.
They do a lot of bad shit.
I think everybody can agree on that.
I'm not saying that it's an epic struggle between God and the devil.
But some people might portray it that way. But I'm just saying that it's like, you portraying it that way, that's a little bit, but maybe not a little bit. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lie. I mean, it has this kernel of truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're fighting a bad thing.
You're exaggerating.
But you're embellishing big time.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like that's what's happening in this situation. Like I said, we have some gangs of roving murderers, plunderers, and, the British colonialists come in and they're just like, we are fighting against these Kali worshippers. It's this organized cult, and they're doing this and that because of Kali, and they're doing this, all this ritual murder and stuff like that. And I kind of feel like they exaggerate a little bit just to make themselves look like, more the good guys.
More of like a crusader.
Yeah. So that's all it is. I'm not saying they didn't exist, because they did. But I'm just saying that it's like they were making it like something bigger.
I think the Thuggees did all their shit mostly just to get money.
Yeah, I mean that's how they made money. Yeah, is they robbed people,
and then they justified it by fucking Kali, and they said, well, Kali says we can do it. It's all good. That's our patron saint. Basically. Yeah. Our mascot. I don't think they probably didn't believe it literally. Although maybe they did. I mean, India has a lot of religions in it. So,
True.
but they're just rationalizing what it is they're doing. They're criminals and they're stealing.
Yeah.
So they just
they're trying to make themselves feel
So
better.
they just chose a god that would fit what they were doing, and they chose Kali.
So everyone is trying to make themselves feel better.
Yeah.
About their actions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever side they're on.
Whatever side they're on. Yeah. Which is very human.
That is very human.
It's very human way of doing it.
I mean, you're always going to justify your own. No matter how fucked up your actions are, you're always going to find some justification for it. Which, like I said.
All right, so
I don't love that.
Let me go ahead and shut it down, I think, Jen.
All right. So it's 10:30.
Yeah.
I think we kind of covered most of it.
Yeah, we will be back on Friday.
Friday, where we will get even drunker
Yeah.
and talk about even more bullshit, which should be even more fun.
Yeah, on our sidetrack show.
On our sidetrack show.
Unless we, who knows? Maybe we'll go to mannequins though. I don't know. Or no, we're gonna go to what you call it.
No, we got to go to like fucking
Okay. All right.
We got to go out on Saturday.
Okay.
I can't go out on Friday and Saturday. I'm old.
Yeah.
Come on
up,
now.
Huh? All right.
I can't go out 2 nights in a row. It's crazy because like fucking 5-6 years ago, we used to go out every single night. I don't even know how we did that nowadays. Not only the money. Well, I didn't drink a lot back then because I was just kind of like I couldn't afford it. But I don't know how I had a full-time job too, like that I actually had to drive to. I was like, how the fuck did I do that? I don't even remember. But yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the show this evening. I know it was kind of all over the place, but you know what I mean. This is kind of an all over the place topic.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap it up for this evening.
I'm gonna check if we got any food downstairs.
Okay. Have a good rest of your night, you guys. Have a good day tomorrow. We'll be back on Friday for the Sidetrack Show, which, you know, most of you guys know. We just get drunk and talk about whatever. There's no topic, and it's super fun. So hopefully you guys can join us for that. And that will do it for this evening. We'll see you guys on Friday night. Good night.